Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Hey, welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to the program. Mike Farwell, as you know, traveling with the team, and it is game day here on 570 News Radio. Mike and the Rangers in Flint tonight, and you'll hear that game tonight on 570 News Radio. And again, Friday in the Sioux, and then it's a Saginaw Saturday night. And then we get our Thanksgiving weekend, and then Mike is back on Tuesday. But you got me today and tomorrow and Friday, likely. So anyway, welcome to the program. Larry in for Mike today. We got lots to talk about. And I guess, you know, gee whiz, we didn't sweep the Yankees, you know. I didn't think we would. So it's a big we here, you know, we the Jays. We the Jays Nation. I didn't, maybe it was my fault. I didn't have a good feeling about last night going in. Even when we were up 6-1, I was like, I don't know, something about this night just, it seems off to me. And it was, you know, so my fault. You know whose fault I think it is, by the way? There's a fan somewhere who truly believes that every time he wears the Jays dark blue jersey, that the team wins. And last night, that fan, let's call him he, for lack of a variety of pronouns, could be a she, I don't know, could be a they. They did not wear the jersey because they had to work or it was laundry. So they didn't wear the jersey and the team lost. So it's that person's fault, right? It's the person who believes that if they don't wear the jersey, the team loses, and they didn't wear it. So let's find that person and blame and shame them. If we're going to be a cancel culture society, then we have to expose that individual and blame them for the Blue Jays' loss. But, you know, but by the way, today is our Blue Jay feature day, Wednesday. And I've had the pleasure before of filling in for Mike and talking to Ian Hunter, Blue Jay Hunter. And he's going to join us this morning at 11 o'clock, and we'll tear it all apart and figure out what went wrong. A few obvious things that we'll talk about at 11 o'clock in our Blue Jay segment. But just kind of as the spirit of it, the fan, as I mentioned yesterday, you know, the significance of the games in October when your team is playing, when your baseball team is playing, the Blue Jays are playing not only important games, but playoff games, and still have the advantage. It is fantastic. It's a great unifier. It's fun. It's what sports kind of does, you know, if you're into it, especially when it kind of transcends the sport itself. It's not, you don't have to be a baseball fan or Blue Jays fan even to kind of get caught up in the hoopla because it's just there. So all that is very cool. And, you know, we didn't sweep. But, you know, I don't sweep either. But I have a pretty good Swiffer that I thought we can still Swiffer them by winning tonight. Or if need be Friday, but it would be fun to do it tonight. I didn't have a good feeling about last night. I got a good feeling about today. Based on what, Larry, you're saying? I don't know. Nothing. My right knee is tingling. I don't know. It's the arthritis or it means a Blue Jay win. It's one of the two. So we shall see. But by the way, I always thought that, you know, speaking of which, I thought that would be a good thing for Swiffer, a good promotion, you know. Blue Jays Swiffer the Yankees. Will the Blue Jays Swiffer the series? Like it would be, this is a good marketing opportunity, right? You know, I put these ideas under a category called, hey, I can't think of everything, but I thought of this, okay? I once had this idea, speaking of Swiffer, I once had this idea for, tell me if you think this is good, Swiffer slippers. And they would look like those big booties that delivery people or sometimes work people put on when they come to your house to work. They put these big kind of slippers on over their boots. So it would look like that, and you'd only need really one. And on the bottom of it would be the Swiffer material. And it would be mostly for guys, let's be honest, and especially single guys who kind of too lazy to do anything. All they'd have to do is put on a Swiffer boot and just run their foot all over the kitchen floor even in the corners and stuff. You get into it. So it's like it's exercise. And you'd have a spotless kitchen floor with a Swiffer booty, and then you just take the booty off and dump it in the trash, and bingo, bango, bongo, it's done. It's like, it's not bad, huh? Or it's really bad. I don't know. I don't. Again, from the file, I can't think of everything. The Swiffer booty has always been an idea. I thought, this could work. This could work. I've got lots of these ideas. I pitch them everyone. Sometimes I'll send an email to the company, very rarely, but every once in a while I'll go, "Hey, you ever thought of doing this?" And then they'll steal my idea and I'll sue them for $1 million. So that's my retirement plan. Nevertheless, back to what was I talking about? Oh, the Blue Jays. Of course, the Blue Jays. It was defense was not stellar last night. Again, we'll talk more with Blue Jay Hunter, Ian Hunter, at 11 o'clock. But, you walk a few guys, you make a few errors in the field. That's with a team like the Yankees, they're just going to take advantage of that and just be all over you, right? So I think if they tighten that up tonight, and one of the things I have noticed about this particular team is that they really are, unlike me, and I'm kidding around about, I had this feeling and, you want it all and you want it right away. They really have a real sense of self as players and self as a team. And they lose to the Yankees, and in their mindset, it's like, well, stuff happens. We'll win tonight. When they won those two decisive games in Toronto on the weekend, it was like, hey, it's two, but we need one more. So they have their heads on straight, I guess is what I'm saying. Don't you think? I think it's fantastic. I think, just, I don't know whether it's Schneider, the management, or who it is, what it is, but just the way they are as a team and as a group of individuals, kind of applying themselves to the game and the way they approach the game and everything. I think it's great. But again, what a unifier. What fun. What fun to have the Blue Jays. What fun to have nice weather. What fun to have Thanksgiving in front of us and the fall colors and everything. Are you a big Thanksgiving person? It's the one observance occasion. It's my favorite because it's not particularly, it goes across all ethnicities and religions and everything. It's a day of Thanksgiving. It doesn't apply to any particular faith or anything. It's just a day to give thanks. So I love it in that case. But in our family, oddly, it was never the biggest day. In radio for many years, you ended up working on Thanksgiving because it was the September-October ratings period, and they felt that you should be there on a Monday in October. Later, they went, well, listening habits change, and you don't have to be there. Don't worry about being there. Take the day off like everybody else. But for years, when my kids were growing up, I worked. So Thanksgiving itself was never a long weekend for me, and it was never a big deal. We try and maybe have a nice dinner on the Sunday or whatever, but Thanksgiving was never a thing. So to this day, my kids and I, family, when we get together, Christmas, birthdays, Father's Day, things like that. But Thanksgiving, not so much. What I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to paint a lonely picture of myself because I'm a single guy. I live alone. I'm probably going to do nothing for Thanksgiving, and I'm great with it. I'm great with it, and I treat myself. And this is kind of sad, really. But on Thanksgiving, I'm not a big fan of the meal of turkey and dressing and all stuffing, whatever, all the stuff, right? So it's okay. I like it. I just as soon have a cheeseburger, or a pizza. But I like, okay, everybody's in the swing of this. I will at least get some sort of poultry, and I treat this is the sad part. I treat myself to a box of stovetop stuffing, which I'm not going to make stuffing from scratch. I could. I know how. I'm good in the kitchen, but I'm not going to do it for a meal I don't particularly enjoy, but I'm going to have it. So I'm going to do a poultry, and I'll make some taters, and I'll make some stovetop stuffing. And every time I buy a box of this, just one box, and I ring it through the cashier, I always feel I'm being judged by the cashier. Like she's looking at me going, "Oh, you poor man. Would you like to come visit our family on Monday?" I'm like, no. You know, this is why I love this is why, by the way, I love the automated checkout. I use it all the time at the grocery store. I'm really good at it. I don't have to make small talk, but I'm all for human contact, but I don't want small talk with the cashier. Sorry, no offense. And I don't want my food purchases judged. I don't want, like, I'm buying a box of stovetop stuffing and 6 fudgicles. Okay, so don't judge me on what I'm buying. Just let me, and I bring it through myself, and I'm out of there, and it's just fine. But I have the stovetop. So I bought the other day. Yesterday actually, I went out and I was picking up a few things, and I saw the stovetop stuffing, and I'm like, I'm buying a box right now in case they run out. This was my mindset. Plus, it was on sale. So in case, and I bought the chicken, not the turkey, because I'm likely just going to have some chicken. Because I'm not, you can buy the individual turkey breasts, or you can buy those frozen turkey things where and they got the stuffing. Not a fan. And I'm not buying a whole turkey, so I'm just going to buy. So I bought the chicken stuffing instead of the turkey stuffing. Although with stovetop, again, all due respect, I'm thinking their turkey stuffing and their chicken stuffing is pretty similar. I don't know if in a taste test you'd be able to tell the difference, but that's going to be my fun Thanksgiving. Anyway, Paul is on the show. As Mike Farwell says, the phones are open as soon as we start the show. So anytime you want to call, here's Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
Don't feel bad about Thanksgiving and all of that. I'm 61. We haven't celebrated it in 50 years on the holiday because we're members of the Alpine Club, and we've been out there. My grandfather was a founding member. We're out there every Thanksgiving weekend celebrating Oktoberfest at the Alpine Club. So, dance group as a kid. Now, we've got family members on the executive. Now I'm working the door every night we're open this week. So our family celebrates afterwards.
Right. Well, so you're doing something cool. That's nice.
Yeah, and we have to now plan for everyone to get together for our actual Thanksgiving after the week of Oktoberfest is over, just because, we're going to celebrate with the community and get all of the rest of the people to get into that German atmosphere and celebration feelings at the Alpine Club.
All right. Well, Prost, or whatever they say.
Yeah, genau. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Paul. Thanks for the call. I ever since I've had a talk show, which I did have a talk show for decades, and every Thanksgiving I would do this. So why not? And I would drive my coworkers crazy because, like, oh, is Larry doing that thing again? Like, give it up, Larry, give it up. But I refuse to give it up. And here's what I refuse to give up. The fact that our Thanksgiving in Canada is in October is brilliant. Brilliant. The American Thanksgiving in the 3rd week of November basically puts it a month from Christmas is ridiculous. Ridiculous, I tells you. It's just, I don't understand the timing of it, why they would do it there. And, and then it's been just co-opted to be this football, Walmart, Black Friday, door crasher holiday that is just, again, there's probably people that sit and give thanks and families get together, and good for them. But the image of it is not that at all, right? Coming back to us here in Canada. We have, and it's not always beautiful weather, but look at this weather we're going to have. We're going to have the exact imagery of a Thanksgiving. We have the fall colors. We have, the harvest. the bounty, the cornucopia, that's October, man, and it's brilliant, except, what do you think of this? Second Thursday in October instead of the second Monday. Like, it's never going to happen, right? I'll mention this every year on a radio show as long as I'm on the radio, and I will post it on social, and I will ask people, and I'll get people who agree and people who disagree, and it'll never change. I don't see an MP who's going to go, that Larry has a good idea. I'm going to set up a bill, and we're going to vote in the House of Commons on this thing and shove it through the Senate to change, because it took a government act for Thanksgiving and for Thanksgiving to be a holiday. So can we do that to move it to Thursday? But wouldn't it be better on a Thursday? Like, we might fall into the trap of making it a real commercial holiday and stuff, and we might not. But the 4-day weekend, not by law, but by virtual placement of a calendar, if it's on a Thursday, people, they either take Friday off or they half-ass it on a Friday, and then they got a 4-day weekend. That's why I think it should be a Thursday. That's the sole reason. But keep it in October because it's the best time. Do we have time for Philip before the break? Sure. Philip, go ahead. Is Philip there? Or are we going to go to break first? Okay. Well, we'll go to break, and then we'll come back and talk to Philip. Oh, no, here's Philip. Okay, Philip, go ahead. Sorry for the confusion here, but we're going to get Philip on now. Are we? Well, this is an auspicious beginning to the program. Philip is on after the break. That's my final decision. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. For how much longer, I'm not sure, but in for Mike. More in a moment. Be right back. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. And for those of you tuning in for the Philip update, Philip has left the building. No, he's left the phone line, so we didn't get Philip on, perhaps due to my own clumsiness in trying to get him on. But perhaps Philip will call back later on another topic. And afternoon today, of course, as we always do in noon to 1, it's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where it's all the Philips in the world and the Phyllises and everybody else. We turn it over to you in that 1 hour, in the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, for your thoughts, your rants, your raves, your ideas, your shout-outs, whatever you would like. Now, I'm hesitating here, but do we think we have Philip back? Do we?
Good morning.
Let's try. Hey, Philip, good morning.
Good morning, Larry. How you doing?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Oh, life is great. Life is great. It's a sunny day. We live in Canada. It couldn't be better.
Good to hear. Nicely said.
You mentioned about being a broadcaster over some holidays, and, Mr. Farwell and I reminisced about the old days of broadcasting. I worked at the local TV station, and I remember this was the week that was so busy at the station because we had what we called the Triple Crown. We had the Miss Oktoberfest pageant back in the 80s and 90s. So you'd set up Tuesday afternoon, do Tuesday night rehearsal, Wednesday night rehearsal. Thursday night was 90 minutes of live TV for the pageant. Then Friday morning, you had to tear down, and Friday morning do the opening ceremonies. Then you set up church, did church on Sunday morning, tore down church, set up for the parade on Monday. 5 o'clock Monday morning, you did start the parade. Then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you went and finally had a nap. That was our Triple Crown back in the 80s and 90s for broadcasting. Pageant, opening ceremonies, church, parade, then go have a nap.
Wow. I'm with you on the nap part. Wow, that is a busy weekend. Yeah. Those were the days.
Yeah, local broadcasting in a crazy time. But yeah. So a lot of people remember watching those programs. Yeah, I was one of those people. That whole week, you just knew you were not going to get a lot of sleep, and it was pretty stressful. Come Monday afternoon, you liked your slice of apple pie, and then go have a nap.
There you go. But look at all the good memories you made.
Oh yeah, lots of great memories. Have a great day, my friend.
You too, Philip. Thank you so much. Good call. I'm glad we got Philip on. Coming up in the program today, by the way, we've got a lot of cool things to talk about. Interesting, I believe. I hope they're interesting to you. Coming up a little bit after 9:30, we're going to discuss the Marineland issue and the belugas, and up to 30 belugas whose future is undetermined at this point. And Marineland is so interesting to me because so many of us who have been in Ontario for decades could probably still sing the jingle. And as it turned out, not everybody loved Marineland the same way, and now forced to close due to, a lot of things, but let's just say changing sensitivities and awareness. And now they have all these belugas, these beautiful white whales. Where do they go? And they could send them to China, but China would also put them in Marineland-esque kind of shows and stuff, and we can't do that. We won't allow that. They could go to a sanctuary in Nova Scotia. They could, but there's some issues with that sanctuary. Marineland has some issues, others. So anyway, we'll try and get through this. And whose responsibility is it? Is it Marineland's on their own? Is it the federal government? Is it Ontario that could do more? The Ontario government with Doug Ford, I don't know. We'll talk to the World Campaign Animal Protection. World Animal Protection. Their campaign manager is going to join us just after 9:30 this morning. At 10 o'clock. Patrick Simmons is going to join us. He's a retired architect who wrote a very interesting letter to the editor recently, and it's all about the LRT extension in Cambridge, or to Cambridge, through Cambridge. And Mr. Simmons believes that we should really embrace it. I know the LRT has its share of critics, I guess, but it's got some very good reasoning on why we should embrace it, celebrate the extension, how basically trains better than buses, if you will. So that's coming up on the program. Also, we talked yesterday extensively. It's a lot of great callers yesterday on the show about the post office. And there seemed to be a lot of people who were saying, post office, time to call it quits. We don't need the mail. But we forget that rural and small business, small, medium business rely on the mail more than perhaps you or I as individuals. So we're going to speak to someone from the Small Business Federation, actually Federation of Independent Business in Canada, to talk about the effects of the postal strike on this small business. I mentioned Blue Jay Hunter. Ian Hunter is going to join us for his regular feature Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. We'll talk last night's game. We'll talk about tonight's game that's coming up at 11. At 11:30 this morning, we're going to talk to the mayor of Wilmot. Natasha Salomon is going to join us. This is something that's on the minds of a lot of people, the Prime Minister's path and the steering committee that they look to form now. Hey, you might be a perfect member of the steering committee if you're in that area, so think about that. They're looking for people to put together a committee to decide the future and kind of reinstate this prime minister's path that was set up many years ago, but then wasn't accepted in ways people thought it would be. Let's just say that for now, and we'll talk to the mayor coming up at 11:30. And then at 12 o'clock, we're going to talk to a representative from OPSU about what happened yesterday at Conestoga, the Doon campus, and the status of the workers and the strike so far. It's been going on for about 4 weeks. So that's coming up on today's program. Back with more on Marineland in a moment here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Got a big show for you today. Just after 10 o'clock this morning, we'll talk LRT extension through Cambridge, and a longtime Cambridge resident and retired architect and urban planner, by the way, who says we should embrace this idea of the LRT. Trains are where it's at, so to speak. wrote a wonderful letter to the editor, which we will discuss when he joins us. Patrick Simmons, coming up after 10 o'clock this morning. Right now in the program, I'm sure you're at least partially aware of the situation with the Marineland beluga whales, 30 of them looking for a home, and Marineland saying if they don't get to relocate them somehow very soon, that there could be a worst possible tragic outcome for the whales themselves. And there seems to be a lot of back and forth and regulations surrounding what can be done and what can't be done next. Here to help us paint a clearer picture of this and discuss this situation from the World Animal Protection Organization, the Wildlife Campaign Manager there is Erin Ryan, who joins us now. Good morning, Erin.
Good morning, Larry. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on about this. Marineland, the now shuttered Marineland, has a lot of animals. The focus right now are on these whales. Why can't they be moved? Who is saying what about why they can't be moved right now?
So under Canada's federal legislation, Bill S-203, which was passed in 2019, it's illegal to export whales and other animals without a federal permit. So what's happened now is that Marineland applied for a permit to export its remaining beluga whales, about 30 to our best knowledge, and the federal fisheries minister has denied that permit for export, which we think is a really impressive, bold display of leadership, showing that it's not in line with the values of Canadians.
Now, this is the export to China that they applied for. Am I correct there? And China would use them in some sort of display or Marineland-like show?
Exactly. So it would just be perpetuating the problem. And rather than, putting these animals in a situation where they could live out the rest of their days a little bit more peacefully, they'd just be moved to another facility that would, really go against the spirit of that legislation that was passed in 2019.
What is the role of the Ontario government here and the PAWS Act or PAWS PAWS Act, or is there one?
Of course. So captive wildlife, i.e. the situations that exist in zoos, are the responsibility of the province. In every jurisdiction across Canada, that's regulated at the provincial level. Unfortunately, what's led to this situation is that Ontario has consistently failed to adopt any type of captive wildlife or zoo regulations. And we wouldn't be in this situation if Ontario had anything except the weakest legislation in the country.
But I mean, ultimately, what can Ontario do if there's a federal law banning their export for these reasons?
For international export, but what we're asking Ontario to do is step in and show leadership. So under the PAWS Act, they are able to step in and seize the animals in place, where they can then send in officers and start caring for the animals on site so that we can get rid of these looming threats of mass euthanasia. Right. Because Marineland is saying they don't have the money to take care of them. That's right. Yes, I understand that now. They don't have the money to take care of the whales. And they have a lot of other animals too, which I understand Marineland doesn't have the money to support them either. Is that correct? I mean, one of the things that we're concerned about is a lack of transparency from Marineland. So we don't know how many animals exactly, but we are talking potentially hundreds of other animals, including 30 belugas and the rest of them.
I mean, if you have, I don't know, I remember, deer there you could feed deer at Marineland, moving a few deer somewhere, but 30 belugas, that just sounds like, pardon the expression, a mammoth, a whale of an exercise to try and get them somewhere.
That's a good expression. Yes, and certainly the belugas are the focus because they are the most difficult to rehome and care for. But one of the things we're asking for, and World Animal Protection has been sounding the alarm for years, is to convene an emergency meeting of stakeholders to try and find out, determine a roadmap for the animals that remain using expert consultation and independent veterinary assessments to make sure that the animals are all in good health.
And just none of that is happening right now is what you're saying.
No, and unfortunately now we've hit this crisis point where information is changing every day, and now is not the time for mixed messaging and bureaucratic chaos. It's the time for finding solutions and working together.
What is of this sanctuary in Nova Scotia have they offered to take the whales, or have they offered to buy them, or what is the situation with that?
So the whale sanctuary is still in development, but certainly they're one of the experts that could be involved in these conversations. The proposed solution is just one option. And right now, one of the things we're asking is that, potentially the province and Ottawa could be working together with Nova Scotia to see if there's a possibility that this development could be fast-tracked. There is always the option that, again, if the province were to seize authority, they could potentially care for the animals on site until such time as either a new home is identified. One of those options could be the proposed sanctuary in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, there's some controversy surrounding it about the quality of water, the quality of the seabed due to some mining that happened near there, etc. So my sense of it, because I don't know, and I don't know that we really know for sure, my sense of it, though, is that they aren't quite ready. As you said, they would need more preparation for that sanctuary in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm. And to my best understanding, the primary barriers right now are legislative. And so that's where I think the governments have an opportunity to really work together and help with that development. But of course, this doesn't need to happen immediately. As you can imagine, transporting a beluga takes a lot of coordinated planning. And I think the first assessment is really coming together and looking at all the options in a really fulsome way. And right now, those conversations aren't happening.
Yeah, that's the sad part. And you say, transporting a beluga times 30. This is part of what we're looking at here as well, whether it be to Nova Scotia or to China, which I mean is not going to happen, and I understand why it shouldn't. But it's interesting. What I mean, in your opinion, why is there this lack of activity at this point?
I think part of the problem is that despite calls for action, Marineland has consistently failed to provide a plan. And what we've seen this week is that they've tried to pass the buck and make it someone else's problem. They've decided that they're asking the federal government for this permit and calling them out when no other options have been discussed and no real plan has been laid, and there's not really been an expert meeting. So it's unfortunate to see that this failure to plan by Marineland is suddenly becoming everyone else's emergency.
I remember when the discussions, because I worked in talk radio in Niagara for many years, and I remember when the discussions first even started about, hey, should we be doing this? Is this a place we should, and we started to understand more about these large animals in captivity, and even the dolphins and the others, and there was always this lack of transparency from Marineland's part, and I still think I think you alluded to it, but I think that's part of the problem as well. They're just not telling us enough.
Exactly. And I think Ontarians really deserve clarity. We're talking about the lives of 30 beluga whales, and potentially hundreds of animals are hanging in the balance. And we've seen over years, decades, that Marineland has consistently failed to communicate honestly with the public.
Well, what would you? Do we have any say? Do we write letters? Do we call our representatives? I mean, what would you like to see people do to try and get this going a little bit more?
Absolutely. I think it's important to talk to your elected officials, either to your MPP or your MP, and letting them know that you want to see Premier Ford take action and convene an emergency meeting of experts to start identifying solutions where these animals can potentially be rehomed or what their plan for future care is.
Do we know how old these belugas are and how long they can live if they live well in a sanctuary or what have you?
It's tough to say because, of course, with 30 belugas, they're all varying ages.
Sure.
But certainly what we've seen is that in captivity, they don't live nearly as long, whereas they're a very long-lived species in the wild. And for a number of reasons, whales have not been surviving at Marineland. Since 2019, I think 19 belugas, a whale, and a dolphin have all passed away.
Yeah, I've always heard about the excavations and digs and burials that kind of go happen in the middle of the night in near Marineland. I think that's sort of a common tale that happens. It's very sad, very sad. Aaron, let's encourage people to get on this, and I thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope people are writing to their elected officials and asking for them to come up with a solution and meet with the experts who know how to make it happen.
You bet. Aaron Ryan is Wildlife Campaign Manager for World Animal Protection. So the situation, well, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? The situation is there's potentially hundreds of animals, but the focus is on the largest and the most difficult to kind of relocate, transport, what have you, and take care of are these 30 belugas. So Marineland is saying we don't have any money anymore to take care of them. We're going to have to euthanize them. That's the word that, we try to avoid, but that's what Marineland is saying. We do have a buyer that would solve this issue, and that's China. But our federal government is saying, no, you can't sell them to China because we control the exports, and we can't allow the sale of animals for that would go just right back into captivity and be basically show animals and be in the same kind of bad situation that they're currently in Marineland, just because you want to make some money and sell them to China. And then the government is also saying, well, what about Nova Scotia? But Nova Scotia, the sanctuary there near off the coast of Halifax there would be just not ready. I don't think it's ready, no matter how much they say that they've done testing and everything. Is just there's so much bureaucracy there. They're just not ready. In the meantime, the animals are starving, and the Ontario government could pass some emergency legislation to at least get them some funds and food and what have you and care. So that, I don't know if I've capsulized it or just made it worse for you, but that's kind of the situation right now with Marineland. We'll talk more in a moment. Get your thoughts. This is 570 News Radio.
I think part of the problem is that despite calls for action, Marineland has consistently failed to provide a plan. And what we've seen this week is that they've tried to pass the buck and make it someone else's problem. They've decided that they're asking the federal government for this permit and calling them out when no other options have been discussed and no real plan has been laid, and there's not really been an expert meeting. So it's unfortunate to see that this failure to plan by Marineland is suddenly becoming everyone else's emergency.
That is well put. I mean, I'm pointing the finger at Marineland, and now they've tried to make it everybody else's problem. But as it turns out, it kind of is. It kind of is now other people's problem because Marineland refuses to do anything else. That, by the way, Aaron Ryan, Wildlife Campaign Manager for the World Animal Protection Organization. I'm Larry Fedorikin from Mike Farwell. We just spoke moments ago if you missed it, but the situation is I tried to capsulize it as well. Marineland's closed. There's no Marineland to go to. And there's no exciting summer ads on TV with the same roller coaster that, anyway, the ads. So since we've changed our sensitivities and all that and actual rules and laws, Marineland shuttered. What do they do with, I'm sure they'll have no problem profiting from the land and other things. They own a lot of very valuable land in that region. But what do they do with 30 whales? They're saying we don't have the money to feed them and take care of them properly. They're going to die anyway, so we're going to have to euthanize them. And nobody's buying whales for captivity in the world. It's just not happening. Everybody in the world is saying no more Marinelands, no more Sea Worlds. That attraction is very, very limited. So you can't just sell them off to another organization, except, of course, one nation in the world that seems to go by their own rules. Whatever they want to do, they do, that we don't necessarily accept any longer in the Western world, and that's China. And China said, yeah, we'd like a few Sea Worlds and Marinelands or whatever we're going to call them, and we'll buy your whales. Well, our government said, no, we're not going to sell those whales for that purpose. Sorry. So where else do they go? Well, they go to the sanctuary off the coast of Halifax in Nova Scotia that is being built and is not ready. And you want to talk about red tape, man. First of all, There's the provincial government in Nova Scotia who's trying to build this whale sanctuary that would involve kind of a, I don't know, cove or whatever, or part of the ocean where they could net it off so that within this large area of netted ocean would be, my understanding, only up to 8 whales would go there, because you can't just take these 30 captive whales and throw them out in the ocean and, hey, all the best to you. They just don't, they wouldn't survive. So you have to put them in some sanctuary where would you hold 30 of them? Apparently not even in the one in Nova Scotia. The one in Nova Scotia, even some locals are protesting because they feel it would limit their access to some of the waters, because you couldn't travel this particular area of their coastline because the whales live there. So they're upset. Plus the people organizing the sanctuary in Nova Scotia, there was some mining nearby, and somebody said the water's probably contaminated from gold mining, and some of the ocean bed also. And they said, no, we've done all the tests. Any contamination of soil at the ocean bed is held within the soil. It's not leaking into the water. The water's been tested. It's fine. Okay, is it? Except France also trying to get rid of a couple of, show whales, I'll call them. France looked at that situation in Halifax and said, no, we're not going to send them. They're not ready. So I guess they're not ready in Halifax. And if they were, it's not a purchase. Like, Marineland is trying to break even here, if not make money, by selling these whales to China. If they went to Halifax, that's not a purchase. That would be, it's like, well, that's, you're going to save their lives and do what you will. Aaron mentioned, and there has always been a lack of transparency from Marineland. So we don't know. Is Marineland sitting on $1 billion worth of land and worried about a few million to feed some whales for a few months? I don't know. Nobody knows. Or are they really in a bad financial situation where they're about to lose everything because they can't feed the whales, so they're going to euthanize them? I don't know. Nobody knows. So what Ottawa said, you can't do this. What they're saying is Doug Ford and Ontario, not that everybody agrees with this, I'm just saying that the advocates are asking the Ontario government to at least, and the federal government to an extent, to come up with some emergency funds, and also to send in some marine veterinarians or whatever they would be, and experts in there to kind of assess these whales, what they're like, what the conditions are like, make sure their conditions are as good as possible right now, and that there is food and any medical attention that you need emergency funds for that. I get it. In times of tough times, inflationary times, when everything's cost a lot and money is scarce and we're paying more for everything and there's tariffs and all that, we're asking the government to take care of some whales and other animals, some other land animals, I guess. The sensitivity isn't always there. It's sometimes hard to find sensitivity in our times towards other human beings, never mind animals. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I'm just saying that's the situation, right? That's the situation. Sometimes it's tough to get people up in arms and in favor of that kind of thing. People might sooner save a puppy at the local animal shelter than they would a whale from Marineland. That's some of the challenges they are facing in trying to get some interest into this situation. But wow, over the years, it's developed to this, Marineland has developed this really terrible situation, and now everybody's kind of in a corner to what to do with these beautiful animals and how to save them if we can at all. Anyway, thank you to Erin Ryan for coming on and talking more about this. She says, if you like, write your local representatives and get them to at least think that we want some action on this particular situation. We're going to talk about the LRT extension in Cambridge. That's next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Yesterday on the program, we had a lot of people talking about the postal strike, and I was amazed at the number of people who said, the days of door-to-door delivery and then the postal system and the post office are over. And yet there were enough people who said, there's rural areas, and the other point was small and medium independent business, how much they rely on the post office. And that is also very true. And sometimes those of us who don't need the mail as much as we used to sometimes forget that. So we're not going to forget that after 10:30 this morning. We're going to talk to a representative of the Federation of Independent Business in Canada, and we'll talk about the effect that this current strike and others have had and are having on small, medium, independent businesses. Right now on the show, looking forward to this conversation, retired local architect and urban designer wants Cambridge to celebrate perhaps the LRT extension. And he is our guest right now, Patrick Simmons, on 570 News Radio. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Larry. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this important subject.
Well, it is important, and I enjoyed your letter to the editor, as it were, and perhaps capsulized some of the points you were making, the positive points about the light rail transit, as opposed to buses and other things, but why you like the LRT.
Larry, it's been a pleasure and an honor to practice architecture in Waterloo region for the last 33 years. And I've had the opportunity to work on some great projects in Kitchener-Waterloo as well as Cambridge. Projects like the Google headquarters, the Gaslight District, the Blackberry campus up in Northeast Waterloo. These were transformational projects, and they were indication of how dynamic this community is and how it grows and transforms over time. When I moved here in 1992, the region's population was only 430,000 people. We've added over 250,000 since then, and another 250,000 are projected to arrive over the next 25 years or so. So this city is growing whether we like it or not. And the LRT is an important tool in the toolbox we have of managing that growth. Any city that's growing as fast, or any community that's growing as fast as this one, needs everything that they can bring to bear to deal with the challenges that emerge with growth. One of the things we have to deal with is the 401 as well as the Grand River. These two features bisect our community north, south, and east, west, and there's only a limited number of opportunities to cross over them. The LRT is, I think, essential to connecting Cambridge over time to the communities north of the 401, including Hespeler, not just Kitchener-Waterloo. Mm-hmm. So in the letter, I make the point that Cambridge is needing the same treatment that Kitchener-Waterloo had over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of bringing a transportation structure that can handle that growth.
But why light rail? Why do you feel light rail as opposed to, say, bus routes is the answer?
Well, I think we've seen in Kitchener-Waterloo that the LRT has brought something that bus routes simply can't bring. Bus routes travel. You can build some dedicated bus routes in some places, but in an existing city like Kitchener-Waterloo and Cambridge, building dedicated bus lines is very difficult. Yes, the LRT is difficult as well, but there's a long-term permanent structure in place when you build an LRT that bus routes don't provide. And when you have people having to make decisions, spending tremendous amounts of money, both private and public sector, they need the confidence that that structure, that infrastructure is going to be there permanently.
Speaking of the cost, you were alluding to the cost there. It's interesting that a project like this is not all local taxpayer money. I think you make that point where an LRT usually involves other funding that comes from other places.
For sure. I think that's absolutely critical for people to understand when they think of the LRT and other major infrastructure projects. The dollar signs sort of appear in front of their eyes. And I think everybody needs to be reassured that this is an enormous project, far too expensive for local governments to fund on their own, and always upper levels of government, whether it's federal or provincial, do contribute most of the cost of a project like this.
I always kind of thought as Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge unique, and then I came to think, is it that unique in that communities grow and then they whether they want to or not, they connect. They are connected. You know, you could say back in the day that Mississauga, Brampton, Toronto were distinctly separate, and now it's just one big GTA or what have you. And I guess I'm getting to this point of the need to be connected, not just transportation within Cambridge, but to be connected to expanding areas around us.
Well, I think Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, Waterloo region is pretty unique. I think we should be very proud of ourselves and our community, how we've managed growth over the years. I came here 33 years ago because I thought this was a great community to raise a family, and I'm very happy I did. And I want a community that my kids want to come back to. 2 of the 6 kids that my wife and I have are living in Kitchener-Waterloo. And the rest of them now are sort of thinking, wow, that's a community I could move back to. It's not what it used to be. And I think part of that is the regional government. They've had foresight, and they've made some decisions over the last 25 years that has put this community on the map. Places like the University of Waterloo Research and Technology Park. These are direct results of decisions made by regional government where they can look at the big picture as opposed to individual city councils. And it's been to our community's benefit that we've had a regional government and regional council with such foresight over the past 25 years.
You also made a point, I'm glad you reminded me of a point you made that you just made, and you made in the letter as well. I grew up in a little town out west where the whole goal was to grow up and get out of there, right? And the idea to have a community that people want to stay in or come back to or move to is really important to future growth of a community.
Larry, that's absolutely essential. And I've spent my career thinking about what kind of city would my kids want to live in? You know, what can we do in KW and Cambridge to create a community that our kids want to stay in or want to come back to? And I think the LRT is part of that. Our kids tend to drive less, tend to want to ride their bikes or take public transit. They want to live in downtown cores and work in downtown cores. And that's what this community is becoming and will continue to become. And the LRT is an absolutely fundamental part of that. Without the LRT, this Cambridge for sure, its downtown will have real struggles to maintain a viable urban economy in the future. So that's not what we want for our kids. We want our kids to be able to get downtown easily, quickly, and affordably from wherever they're living and enjoy a vibrant downtown.
Well, we always hear too, or I hear lately, of these walkable communities and the idea of building more walkable communities. And I'm all for those, but you're still going to need transit, right? You're still going to need to get from here to there at some point.
There was no traffic jams when I first moved here, no rush hour to speak of. And now it's slowly building over time and people get used to it. Each day they drive, maybe there's a few seconds more. And then over time, it sort of becomes this almost a crisis. And that's not going to stop. It's not going to slow down. These traffic jams are going to get worse. And something like the LRT is the start of beginning to alleviate that, moving people into the core areas, into the downtown, and giving them options rather than getting in their car. They can take the LRT.
Architect and urban design is something you've studied too. So I'm just pointing out that because that's part of where your opinion comes from on transit and LRT specifically is the design of urban communities, right?
Well, you can look at projects that we've done. I'm very proud of some of them, like the Google headquarters in downtown Kitchener. We also did the Blackberry campus up in Northeast Waterloo, and you compare the two these days, they're about 10 years apart, but there was a significant change on how people wanted to live, work, and travel within a city that made corporations like Google say, no, we don't want to be in suburban Waterloo. We want to be downtown. And the other project is a great example of a new way of thinking about cities is the Gaslight District project we did down here in Cambridge, and brought tremendous benefits to the community here in terms of people living, working, shopping, and eating in downtown Cambridge. And these are the kind of projects that you need an LRT to support.
Right. You know, the if you just add traffic lanes and tunnels, whatever the next idea is for cars, there'll just be more cars. It's never the answer. I think most people, experts anyway, agree that transit is usually a big part of the solution to congestion.
Again, it's our demographic that is reluctant to embrace the changes, but our kids and even our kids nowadays don't think of that public transit or LRT as being that unusual. They're much more quick to embrace those innovations.
Well, I enjoyed your thoughts on this in the letter and today in this chat that we had, and I hope people think about this more, embracing the LRT, the extension through Cambridge. Patrick Simmons, thank you so much for all the work and for your time today.
Thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate the chance to talk.
You bet. Patrick Simmons is a retired local architect who's written an article about embracing the LRT extension in Cambridge for reasons we just talked about. Your thoughts on this when we get back? This is 570 News Radio.
The LRT is an absolutely fundamental part of that. Without the LRT, Cambridge, for sure, its downtown will have real struggles to maintain a viable urban economy in the future. So that's not what we want for our kids. We want our kids to be able to get downtown easily, quickly, and affordably from wherever they're living and enjoy a vibrant downtown.
I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. That was my guest moments ago, Patrick Simmons, a retired local architect, a longtime Cambridge resident who has written a letter that you can find online, letter to the editor, talking about the LRT extension, how it should be embraced in Cambridge, and our conversation there in general about the need for rail transit, especially light rail, because bus routes get closed, they get moved, they get rerouted, this and that. They are subject, of course, to the traffic congestion themselves, whereas light rail really is the future. Not everybody agrees, but it's good points there from Patrick Simmons. Here's Rich. Rich, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Yeah, I'm one of those, Larry, who doesn't agree. I think back, the LRT ended up costing us over $1 billion. And if I'm not mistaken, they came out with numbers recently that said we were down over 1 million riders this year. So even today, people seem to be, turning their backs on the LRT in Kitchener-Waterloo. I think that number of ridership is across buses as well. But public transit, I get what your guest is saying in that our kids and our kids' kids embrace it more than, the older generations. I don't think that's a choice thing. I think that's by necessity. We've made it harder, more difficult to drive. We've made it way more expensive. The cost of ownership of vehicles is up. Insurance is way up. I think, though, that, if you asked the majority of people, all else being equal, private ridership is greatly preferred. And I just think that with self-driving vehicles, I don't think the solution is going to be fully public transit. The solution is going to be rideshare. If you can hail an Uber from your phone and it shows up with a robot driver in 2 minutes and takes you from exactly where you are right now to exactly where you want to be in 10 minutes, people will choose that over the 1 hour train and bus ride every single time.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But Rich, isn't it still the same amount of cars on the road though? And if you ever want to reduce that, you have to kind of start now by building infrastructure like rail systems. I'm asking the question of you. I'm not
I
offering
think
it as
that
an opinion.
congestion is because of poor drivers and bad decisions mostly. I don't think that you necessarily, like, between here and Toronto, by all means, get those rail lines running at better speeds so that we can get from KW to Toronto in under 2 hours, downtown to downtown. By all means, do that. But like in and around town, I don't know, man. I think that if you live on the LRT is great if you live on the LRT and work on the LRT. But as soon as you have to branch out from that, it's a royal pain in your rear. So
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
no, I think rideshare and that and no, also when it's a robot driver, there will be less cars because a lot of people will select that option that, hey, I don't have to go direct from my spot to, like, for example, I've got a kid who goes to university in Guelph. If he could hail an Uber and share that cost with 2 other kids from here to Guelph, he would do that all day, every day. Take out the cost of the human driver, I just don't see the economic argument anymore for extension of LRT. Thanks.
Right.
I got to go. Bye, Rich.
Hey, man, great call, Rich, though. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opinions and thoughts. I really think transit infrastructure has to be there, though. I mean, and as someone who's been on transit for 4 years now, exclusively on transit, I kind of get what Rich is saying, and I get what Patrick is saying. Where I live, there are certain times I gave up my car basically a couple of reasons. Semi-retired. It was COVID. I wasn't going anywhere. It was costing me a lot of money for, the lease and maintenance and just insurance and everything that everybody pays to own a car. It's very expensive to have a car. And then my eyes aren't great. So anyway, my story, but I gave up the car and love it. Love it. First of all that money drain that goes into the car is now in my bank or spent on better things. Secondly, I would say, this is a rough estimate, 75% of the time, transit is the perfect answer for me. Does it take longer? Yeah, it takes a little longer. Some days the bus is crowded. Some days there's a couple of questionable people on the bus that I hope they get off soon or that I don't want to sit near. It's the joys of being out in public, that's always going to be a part of transit, I guess. But the system is there. There are other times when I am 2 buses and a train away where I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. But if I had to do that every day, I would probably have a different opinion. But the fact that I do it once a week, 3-4 times a month, maybe 5 times, 6 times a month, where I have to transit and do this and plan a little extra on my day because I have to get from here to there. Whereas if I had a car, I'd be there in 10 minutes and back in 10 minutes and it wouldn't be an afternoon. But what am I trying to say? I guess my point is I understand the preference of the private ride. I've only done an Uber once in my life. I try not to spend money on Uber and taxis if in fact I can do a bus, but it's just going to take me a little longer. Okay. And let's not even say bus. Let's just say transit, if it's an LRT or whatever it is. And yeah, there's who wouldn't want the private ride in the car with the radio tuned to 570 and you're a passenger and you can do whatever you want, I guess that's, but we're going to have a transit infrastructure that includes rail. And if that, I think that is going to be true, and it's going to be true 20 years from now. And in 20 years from now, we all go, oops, should have built a light rail system when we have the chance, and it's going to be much tougher to do. So I think there's some foresight into building it now. The fact that maybe ridership is down, or it lost money, or there's problems, I think when we figure out a way to do it better, then that's going to help us. I don't think that's a reason not to do it. I think if something doesn't work the way it should, then we make it work. We don't say, well, let's not do it again. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? All right. Speaking of things that we're looking at and go, do we need this? The post office and its effect on the strike, rather, its effect on small business. We'll talk about that next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Yes, and isn't it that magical time of year for sports fans where there is baseball and hockey and football and basketball? Yes, Raptors are in an exhibition schedule as well, soon to start their season. So when it all comes together for sports fans, what to choose. And go Rangers go, as we said, tonight's game on 570 News Radio. Mike Farwell in Flint with the Rangers, and should mention that it's part of the reason I'm here is he's on this road trip where they'll be in the Sioux on Friday and Saginaw on Saturday. So all those games, of course, on 570 News Radio. Yesterday we talked, especially during our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, a lot of people called to talk about the postal strike and what they felt was the future or lack of for the Canada Post and the post office, as we like to refer to Canada Post sometimes, as just the post office, mail delivery et al. And people made the point about rural areas who rely more on the post office than some of us in urban areas might. And the other point was small, medium, independent business. And that's what we want to cover right here. Our guest is Jasmine Gannett. He is Vice President of National Affairs for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Joins us to talk about the effect of the postal strike on business. Jasmine, thanks for coming on the program today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, can we quantify, or in general terms, maybe even say how this is affecting this being the postal strike, how it's affecting business in Canada?
Yeah, of course. Still today, 80% of small business in Canada use Canada Post for their operations. So whether it is sending packages to their clients, whether it is to send promotional materials in their community and potential clients, whether it is, sending out invoices or receiving payments, still today, many small firms across the country are still using Canada Post. Although since the last strike, many businesses decided to use Canada Post less, but nonetheless, it remains for many small firms an important service, and they need to rely on it almost on a daily basis.
Now, there's bricks and mortar, which use the mail, of course, but a lot of the bricks and mortar, especially maybe inspired by COVID, they also went to an online model, and many stores have to do that today, where you can't just have a bricks and mortar. You have to be able to send packages from the website and things like that. And that's where the mail comes in, right, for a lot of people, because they have that component to their business as well.
Yeah, and we saw that happening with the last strike at Canada Post, where many businesses switched to some form of online infrastructure to send or receive payments, or even communicate with potential clients and so on. And this is the thing that we are saying is that the union, when they decided to launch that new strike, it's kind of for them to shoot themselves in the foot, if you like, because today there are alternatives for businesses, and business could use less Canada Post should they feel that the corporation is not reliable, and if it's if it's uncertain when the service will be available and so on. And so you're right, business can have can set up online structure and use less the service that Canada Post typically provides.
You make a good point, and we're not commenting on the government's demands of the post office or the post office reaction to it or any negotiations. Be that as it may, that's what they have to negotiate. But you make a great point about the business owners. If they can't absolutely rely on this, then they're just going to switch over, and that's going to hurt Canada Post.
Yeah, absolutely. Many services can be adapted to online communications, method of payments, and so on. And we support the changes that were announced because Canada Post is currently losing about $10 million every day. If nothing is done, the corporation will just continue to lose at least $10 million a day, and taxpayer will have to bail out the corporation year after year. And it is not a viable long-term plan for Canada Post or for any corporation for that matter. And so it's important that we modernize Canada Post. It's important that we change the business model. And small business are one of the last reliable clients of Canada Post. You and I and your listener, we don't use as often, letter mail service. We're going to send emails, we're going to text each other, but we're not going to send letters. And so what is really important for small business is to be able to have access to the service provided by Canada Post, especially when it comes to send out parcels and so on. And the corporation has to modernize. It cannot continue the way it is structured right now.
It's interesting, too, because the rural aspect comes to this. Because I was reading a story about one small business. They sell smaller or have to send smaller packages. And the cost of a small package to a remote or a more remote area was between $8 and $9 by Canada Post. By courier, it was over $60. Just to give people an idea, you say, well, can't they pass the cost along for $1 or $2 here and there? It's not $1 or $2 here and there. It's sometimes very expensive, especially to remote areas, if that's where your customers are, to get packages. Yeah,
and the last strike happened during the holiday shopping season, and it was very costly for many small firms across the country for the reason you just explained, that in order to make sales, businesses were turning to other courier, and typically those other courier are a lot more expensive, especially, as you said, if you are sending packages to rural or remote communities, or if you're a small firm and you have a client that is ordering from you based in another province, Canada Post will often be a lot cheaper than other options, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the union wants to is pushing back against the reforms, and it is going to most likely push many small businesses away from Canada Post. We did a survey, and 2 out of 3 business owners said that they could turn their back definitively on Canada Post because of this current strike. And so we're hoping that it will end soon, and we are hoping that the changes will be made so that businesses who need to rely on Canada Post will be able to do so in a more with more certainty in the long term.
I appreciate you speaking publicly about this, and it's a very important issue. But also, does someone like yourself, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, do you contact the government directly and or the postal union and say, "Hey guys, don't forget about us"? Are you in direct contact with them?
So we have shared. We did a special survey with our membership this summer on Canada Post. So we shared the result of the survey, and we also shared, recommendations that we are making for Canada Post. We share those with, the Prime Minister in a letter. We share all that with Minister Joël Lightbond, who is the minister responsible for Canada Post. We share that with Minister Aidu. She's the Labour Minister. And so we share that with, many members of Parliament so that they are aware of what we have to say on this issue. The president of the CFIB had a call a week or 2 ago with one of the union leaders. We had calls in the past with different stakeholders at Canada Post and at other organizations to share our priorities, to share our ideas and position on Canada Post. And we are obviously, communicating publicly through interviews like this one, what we say and what we think and what we believe should be the path forward. And so I just feel like it's still for government a bit of a hot potato in the sense that the current government is certainly hesitant to force back to work again, to force the worker back to work after forcing, the postal worker back to work after the last strike. They are hesitant to do that again, but it's probably the only solution, honestly, because the union will not stop their strike. It doesn't look like they are interested in looking carefully at any of the proposed change that were announced. Again, this morning I was hearing that the union is asking Canada Post to not go forward with any of the changes that were proposed. And so,
right.
In that context, it's difficult to imagine that the postal worker will get back to work on their own. And so it's going to, at some point, need some political movement.
Well, it always does. Thank you for reminding us the importance of this to small business. I appreciate your time today, Jasmine. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Have a great day.
You bet. Jasmine Gannett is Vice President of National Affairs for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. More on this in a moment here on 570 News Radio.
we don't use as often letter mail service. We're going to send emails, we're going to text each other, but we're not going to send letters. And so what is really important for small business is to be able to have access to the service provided by Canada Post, especially when it comes to send out parcels and so on. And the corporation has to modernize. It cannot continue the way it is structured right now.
That's for sure. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell this week, and that was my guest, Jasmine Gannett, Vice President of National Affairs for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, talking about the effects of the postal strike on small, medium, independent businesses. The shipping, especially since a lot of businesses, even the bricks and mortar, had to go to a shipping model, a website and ship products out model to help bolster their business. Maybe they had to do that during COVID, but now they keep that just because we shop online. So even if you're bricks and mortar, you have to have an online component, which means people aren't coming to your store, which means you have to ship to them, and you used the most reasonable service out there, which is Canada Post. And it's not like, if you're going to use a private courier, it's not like it's $1 or $2 more necessarily, where you could eat that cost or pass a little bit of it to the consumer. It's $10 more, $20. It's even greater. I've mentioned that one example of the $9 package, which costs $65 to ship to a remote area in Canada. Who's gonna pay that? We end up, the consumer will pay more, because I don't know if you know this, but there's no such thing as free shipping, as much as they tell you this on TV. Free shipping. No, the cost is already built into the product. So shipping costs money, and when you use Canada Post because you're a smaller business, then that's that. And if they're on strike, it's hurting small business. Here's Johan. Johan, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm really concerned that Canada Post isn't going to get me my medicine, because I live in a one-bedroom apartment, and I'm handicapped, and I depend on Canada Post to bring me my medicine. And I know a lot of pharmacies and doctors' office depend on the flu shot getting to them to Canada Post. And if Canada Post doesn't get back to work, then nobody's going to get their flu shot or COVID booster or respiratory shots that they all seem to want.
Can you make other arrangements without a cost to you, or that's it? You got to wait for the post office.
I don't know how they get it. The government, makes it, and then they give it to all these other people through the post. So you have to ask whoever manufactures everything for the government.
Right.
See, we got a new prime minister who doesn't understand what's going on. Like, he's been with the elites forever. And even on November 4th, when they do their budget, I don't know if it'll pass. He doesn't have a majority government. So he's going to have to do some wheeling and dealing there somewhere. But I know is that if Canada Post doesn't get back to work, a lot of people are going to suffer.
There is still a need for it. I just don't think it's. I think a lot of people point to the structure of it now and what it has to become as being two different things. Here's Alex. Alex, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable on this kind of stuff. I could just go by what I'm told by friends and family. But there are members of Amazon, okay, and the deliveries, it's always free, usually next day. A buddy of mine, he literally got a pack of Bic pens, which was, $3.85 or something for the Bic pens, and it was delivered to his house the next day for free. Now, he's a member. You have to be a member of Amazon somehow. You got to, I don't know what that costs. I don't know what that entails.
Yeah, it's a Prime membership, I believe, gives me the free delivery, which is somewhere in that streaming price of $11 to $15 a month.
Right. So, and a lot of I don't use those services. I actually still like the mail system. Well, I don't like it, but I use it.
Right.
Mainly bills, checks, and whatnot. But but the people that do use, especially the Amazon one, they love it. And it's literally like the next day, it's at your house, delivered packages, and it's absolutely free. So, I mean, they're obviously making money doing that. And so I don't know what the solution is, but Canada Post is an outdated method, and it costs way too much money. And unfortunately, because it's subsidized by us, the taxpayers, there's no great push to change because they get subsidized by us. So I think, if I was fully in charge, I would have some very smart people that were in the business put their heads together and figure out how to get the last of the mail delivered through a private company. It would be way cheaper, way more efficient.
Yeah, Alex, thanks for the call. I'm just short on time here, but I agree with a lot of things you said. And the government's kind of said that, and they have put heads together. But then the union goes, "Oh no, you don't." I think the union has to make some hard choices too. So we can get more into it when we have our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, because next we're going to talk Blue Jays. It's time for our weekly Blue Jay Hunter, Ian Hunter, coming up next, 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Coming up after 11:30, we're going to go to Wilmot and talk about the Prime Minister's path, and there are developments in that situation. That's coming up after 11:30. But here we are for the regular Wednesday feature during baseball season, and I've had a chance to fill in on Wednesdays and talk to this gentleman, and it's always my pleasure. It's time for Blue Jay Hunter with Ian Hunter. 570 News Radio creative writer, and as I said, Blue Jay Hunter. And what we can find you, Ian, right? Blue Jay Hunter on Facebook and other social?
Twitter, Blue Sky, all those fun things. Well, I guess it's not Twitter anymore. It's X now, right? I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't care what they say.
I do too. And many people do on purpose. And bluejayhunter.com, is that out there also?
Yes, sir. Yes, that's correct.
All right. I would like to talk to you about game 1 and 2 only. I won't, but I'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
Were we kidding ourselves that, we could sweep the Yankees? Was that just not reality, I guess? Well, obviously not.
Well, I mean, let's keep in mind, these are the two teams that finished with the best records in the American League. The Yankees are a good team, right? Although they were out to quite a hefty division lead earlier in the season, and the Blue Jays surpassed them. But yeah, it kind of felt like, I don't want to say this was inevitable, but the Yankees weren't just going to roll over and die, right? Especially with the series going to the Bronx, and with the Yankee bats being fairly dormant in games 1 and 2 of this series. I would say the Jays pitchers kind of were pretty lucky. I mean, the bullpen kind of fell apart in game 2 at the tail end there, but the Jays were out to such a big lead, it didn't really matter. So, and Aaron Judge really hadn't done much in this series aside from a few scattered singles and a double. He comes up with a gigantic home run, a game-tying home run yesterday. So kind of felt like the Blue Jays were playing with fire that entire game. If you were a pitcher, whether you were a starting pitcher or a reliever, you were not having fun in that game last night. It was pretty much all offense that whole game.
By the way, Aaron Judge, but for a couple of inches, that's a foul ball.
Yeah, I mean, that was so close, right? And the other thing too, it was a pretty decent pitch from Louis Varland of the Blue Jays, a pitch that was inside about 6 inches off the plate, thrown at 99 miles an hour. But Aaron Judge, being one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, somehow found a way to turn on it and basically hit a pitching wedge off the left field foul pole. I mean, if the wind is gusting at a certain point, that's a foul ball any day of the week. But it felt like at some point he was going to come alive in this series, sure. And you can only play with fire for so long before they burn you.
And for those who maybe didn't see the game or the highlights, it's a left field. It's far, but it actually hits the foul pole and ricochets fair. So that's what I mean by a couple inches. It ricochets foul, and it's the next pitch. But it was a massive hit either way. But just that game of inches, as it were. Speaking of the bullpen, so game 4, if necessary, and it turns out it is, was going to be a bullpen game because there's no 4th starter for the Jays. So how much, I mean, yesterday turned into a bullpen game, did it not? Because Bieber didn't do as much as we'd hoped.
Yeah, it's basically the Blue Jays are kind of running back-to-back bullpen days here because, as you said, Shane Bieber only went 2 2/3 innings. He's been one of the Blue Jays' most impressive starting pitchers down the stretch here, but just couldn't get it done. Same with Carlos Rodon of the Yankees yesterday. So Louis Varland is going to quote-unquote start this game. He's now making his 4th appearance in 4 games in this series. So maybe you might see him for 2 innings, and then from there, it's basically anyone and everyone in the bullpen. It sounded like maybe we could potentially even see someone like Kevin Gausman for 2 or 3 innings, even though it's not a traditional start per se. I think it's a kind of a situation where it's all hands on deck. You just want to get this game done and dusted and hope that it doesn't go back to Toronto. I mean, the Blue Jays basically have 3 chances here to advance in this series. They failed in the first one, and this one, I don't know if I would say it's pretty fairly evenly matched. You know, having a bullpen game going into Yankee Stadium is not ideal, but the Blue Jays did this a few weeks ago against the Boston Red Sox, and it worked out fairly well. And the Blue Jays hitters have fared well against Cam Schlittler earlier this year too. He's making the start for the Yankees, so it's kind of a coin flip right now. I don't know if I had to handicap one team winning or the other. It's kind of split down the middle, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't disagree. By the way, Gausman, if all went well, what would be his? If we win tonight, what would it? And he's not used. What would have been his next start? Would it be game 1 of the ALCS?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like, I think probably if this goes to a game 5, it's going to be Trey Yesavage starting on Friday in Toronto. And yes, if the Blue Jays advance, I think Gausman, they save him for game 1 of the ALCS. But I think if it gets down to a situation where the bullpen's looking shaky and they need 2, possibly 3 innings of relief, I don't think they'll hesitate to go to Kevin Gausman. It's kind of it's a weird situation in the playoffs. Traditionally, you would not do this in the regular season, but as I said earlier in the postseason, it's kind of all hands on deck. And if it's a guy who can get outs, I don't think it matters if he's a starting pitcher or if he's a reliever, so long as he's healthy and he's ready to go and he's getting outs. I think John Schneider's going to put him in the game. Yeah,
and he can give you some innings for sure. And I mean, he pitched on, just trying to do the days here, I guess Saturday. Yeah, so that's normal day's rest, right, for a starter.
Yeah, so he'll be fully rested. I mean, he could even potentially maybe start on Friday in Game 5, but I just think the way that Trey Yesavage, who started Game 2, he looked so dominant against Yankees hitters. I think if you're the Jays, you want to go back to the well and keep him lined up for Game 5. But I think Kevin Gausman here is the ultimate wild card. It would not shock me if we saw him here today, just to kind of take a little bit of pressure off the bullpen, because, yeah, there was quite a few relievers used yesterday and then as well on Sunday. Even though the Jays won that game, I think they used like 7 relievers or something like that. So you don't want your bullpen to be gassed for these last two games of the series.
That Trey Yesavage with a release point that somebody said was 7 feet, 2 inches up in the air, straight up in the air where the ball leaves his hand, is ridiculous. And then it comes down, and then that it's not the slider. Is it the slider split? Anyway, the one that drops out of sight right at home plate, right? It just disappears, and guys whiffing at it. It was fun to watch, man.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, his delivery alone, you can kind of see why hitters have so much trouble picking it up, because it's almost like he's releasing the ball over top of his head. It's such a unique delivery, and also the fact that he's a rookie, right? There's not a lot of tape on him from opposing teams to kind of see what they're expecting. But yeah, that splitter was absolutely devastating. One of the most dominant starts by a Blue Jays starting pitcher in postseason ever. And that was his 4th major league start in the big leagues at 22 years old. I mean, it was just so much fun to watch. I think ideally, if you're a Jays fan, you're hoping the Jays don't have to go back to him in Game 5 and that they wrap up this series. But if they do, I think you're pretty confident that he's going to put out a good outing, just as he did this past weekend.
You reminded me of something that I said to myself, if I have time, I'm going to ask Blue Jay Hunter this thing. And since you brought it up, I'm going to ask you now. So you mentioned the Blue Jays and Yankees best records in the AL. When did I can't find a definitive answer on this. When did the playoff structure change so that the top two teams who win their divisions, best records, make the playoffs, and then 3, 4, 5, 6 seeds play in a wild card series? In other words, and what I'm getting to is Cleveland wins their division, but they don't make the playoffs because of the playoff structure.
Well, the playoffs. So the latest change happened at the end of the 2021 season. That, of course, was the year where the Blue Jays missed the playoffs by one game. The wild cards were expanded to have 3 wild card teams in 2022. Right. So that's when that expanded, and they kind of had to rejig things where all of a sudden, even if you win your division, you're not all of a sudden getting a bye into the ALDS. Now you have to be the top 2 teams in the American League, as you said. So that third division team would face a wild card team. I know I talked to Mike about this last week. I know he's not really a fan of expanding the playoffs too much, but I think, back in the day, there was only 4 teams that went into the playoffs in MLB. It's like you won your division and that was it. You went straight to the ALCS or NLCS. Now there's a little more parity, gives an opportunity for more teams to be in there. And I kind of think it just adds more excitement and more intrigue, kind of gets more teams in there, maybe some nice Cinderella stories. There was like the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers. They were wild card teams a few years ago, and they went all the way to the World Series. Mm-hmm. So I'm in favor of it. I think the number that they're at with 12 teams, I think that's probably enough. I don't think they need to do any more, but I think, 4 or 8 teams even, I think that's far too few to make it into the postseason.
I agree with you 99.9%. I understand the need for more teams and the fact that in August and September, more franchises are excited because somehow they still have a shot through the wild card system. I agree with all of that. It's just, to me, a shame that you win your division and it still could be no go for you. Like there's no reward for winning your division necessarily. You have to win it and win it big to be one or two. So I don't know how you fix that. I'm just throwing it out there as the little flaw in the system.
When you win your division, you still do advance to the postseason. If you're the third best team in that particular league, you might still have to get through a wild card series, which, right. There is a bit of disservice to that. But, sometimes there are teams that might only have 86 or 87 wins and win their division, but you have wild card teams who have better records than that. So I think overall it evens out, but you might have some years where you're scratching your head thinking, why is this team even in here? They probably don't even belong to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a good point. I want to get back to the Jays because this is Blue Jay Hunter with Ian Hunter, and we'll return in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell this week as Mike is traveling with the Rangers. It's Rangers season. It's Leafs season, soon to be Raptors season. It's NFL season. And for us, it's still baseball season because the Blue Jays are in the playoffs. It feels good just on that level alone. But now that we're here, why don't we, win it all? And usually on Wednesdays during baseball season, we have Blue Jay Hunter with Ian Hunter. Blue Jay Hunter, found on social, bluejayhunter.com. Also, if you want to find that, and Ian Hunter with us still here. And last night, Yankees bats came alive, but also a few errors on the Blue Jays more than usual, wasn't there?
Yeah, I would say the Jays definitely gave away lots of outs last night. You could probably count 3 or 4 maybe. You've got There was the bobble by Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in the first inning. That leads to extra pitches for Shane Bieber and 1 run. And then Addison Barger misses a pop-up by Austin Wells in the 4th, which sets up Aaron Judge's game-time home run in the 4th inning. And then Austin Wells also hits the ball to the outfield that Anthony Santander probably should have caught. That gives the Yankees an 8-6 lead. And it was really an unorthodox game by the Jays yesterday, because typically they are a solid, defensively sound team, not making a ton of errors and giving up unearned runs, but that did not look like them last night. And you can't give away outs in the postseason, and you can't give away outs to a team like the Yankees, who had the most home runs in Major League Baseball, and just kind of felt like something was brewing early on. And you cannot give them an opportunity to get back in that game. And that's what the Blue Jays did, not just once, twice, thrice, but probably even 4 times.
Yeah, there was some good. I mean, I liked that Vladdy had the sense to get Aaron Judge in a rundown. There was a good pickoff at second at one point that was challenged, but it was a good defensive move. But defensively, I think Schneider even mentioned that after the game. It's like, you give them, you make a few mistakes, you open the door to a team like the Yankees, kind of what you just said, and they're going to take advantage. They're just too good a team.
Yeah, and I can't remember the exact stat, Larry, but I think this season the Jays were something like 39-0 when scoring 5 or 6 runs in a game. So it was just really, they kind of had everything going against them. Shane Bieber looked shaky early, wasn't getting a lot of swing and miss. And although the Blue Jays had chased the Yankees starting pitcher by the 3rd inning, they were kind of on the same boat in the starting pitching side. And the bullpen, most of the relievers didn't look great. Louis Varland giving up a pair of home runs, one to Judge and then one to Jazz Chisholm Jr. So it was just kind of everything bad going at once for the Jays. And they also couldn't score off the Yankees bullpen either. I mean, looked like Toronto had the Yankees on the ropes. They had lost both of their managerial challenges. Their starter was out of the game. The Jays had a 5-run lead. And, the momentum just shifted. And that all started probably because of those defensive miscues. I mean, Aaron Judge hitting a solo home run, you're not too worried about that. But a 3-run home run, that's definitely going to kill you in the postseason.
What about, and I'm speaking, I mean, the bats were alive last night, and I think a few defensive mistakes. I don't think they ever let up or gave up at any point or got overconfident. I don't think that's the Jays' makeup. I think they were in it all the way, but then again, a few mistakes, as we said. But what do you make of, especially in games 1 and 2, even last night to an extent, I think Clement was 3 for 3, was he not? Of the production of the bats from top of the order to the bottom of the order, it seems to be a real team contribution here at the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that last few weeks of the season, the offense really trailed off for the Blue Jays. They had a ton of trouble scoring runs, especially on that last road trip through Kansas City and Tampa Bay. But the bats just woke up the second they got back to Toronto, and especially in that Tampa Bay series. The fact that they chased, a guy like Max Fried of the Yankees, who is one of the best starting pitchers in the American League this year. They lit him up. They also worked Carlos Rodon yesterday to the bone, really working a lot of deep counts, fouling off a lot of pitches. And then it was almost as if once the game was turned over to the bullpen, the Blue Jays kind of abandoned that approach, the one that has made them so successful this year, working deep counts, putting the bat on the ball, and making their defense do the work. I mean, as you said, Clement, I think he was 4 for 4 last night. He definitely contributed, but I don't think they didn't take their foot off the pedal. It didn't seem that way, but from the offensive perspective, it was like, yeah, they scored in bunches. They got all their runs off of Carlos Rodon, and then they couldn't tack anything on to the Yankees bullpen.
Emotionally, as fans, as observers, there was Saturday, Sunday to clinch Tampa Bay win. There was Saturday, Sunday, Yankees game 1-2. Boy, last night was just emotionally, it was so different. How How do you feel about tonight? I'm not asking for predictions, just kind of the expertise that you bring. What do you see happening tonight? What are you feeling?
Yeah, I think from the fan perspective, it was quite the swing of emotions, right? From the fact that you go up 2-0 against the Yankees, going to Yankee Stadium, you figure, hey, the Jays have 3 chances to get this thing done and send them to the next series, and then they just not only come out and lose that game yesterday, but they had a commanding lead. They had a 5-run lead. It'd be one thing if it was 9-6, a final score, and the Jays, chipped in a few runs here and there, but they had command of that game early. So I think from the fan perspective, it's kind of there's a little bit of a sense of dread there. I don't know if people have just become cynical with everything they've seen in Toronto sports, but there is a little bit of fear that, oh no, here we go again. But I still think the Blue Jays are in a good spot here. I think from the player perspective, you just you flush it down the drain. You don't worry about what happened yesterday, because then that's going to affect what happens in these next 2 games. I think if you're a player, you always want to have a short memory. You don't want to repeat the same mistakes, but don't let it affect how you play today and potentially on Friday. So I think that's the approach that the players are taking. But from a fan perspective, I definitely think it's way more nervous to watch these clinching games, because I don't know, that it's so heightened, right? It always feels much more is at stake when the series is on the line rather than when you're down in the series.
For sure. Always a pleasure. Ian Hunter, Blue Jay Hunter. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. My pleasure.
Go Jays go. BlueJayHunter.com. Find Blue Jay Hunter on all social. That's Ian Hunter. This is 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
In our noon hour, as every day on the Mike Farwell Show, it's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. We're going to interrupt a portion of that at the beginning of our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour to talk to OPSU. We have a representative of the bargaining committee from OPSU on. And, of course, OPSU was behind the big demonstration yesterday as part of the ongoing labor dispute. The big demonstration yesterday at Conestoga College, the Doon campus. And that was kind of a... what do I say? Special event, a special demonstration picket, because they have been on picket lines for about 4 weeks. So we're going to talk to them about that coming up in a special segment of that 12 o'clock hour in about half an hour's time. So stick around for that. Those of you who've been following the story, I guess, so far of the Prime Minister's path in Wilmot, might have heard that the city is looking to create a community group, a steering committee, to decide on the future of this Prime Minister's Path project. Joining us is the mayor of Wilmot, Natasha Salomon. Mayor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Larry. It's great to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about the history, not of Canada, because we don't have that kind of time, but just of this Prime Minister's Path project. Started out kind of as a sesquicentennial idea, 22 statues, related displays of the Prime Ministers of Canada. And what can we say? It wasn't received necessarily by everyone the way we thought it would be. Would that be a fair description?
Well, considering I wasn't involved in the very initial stages, I don't want to put any preempts, but what I can certainly catch you up on is the part of it eventually found a home in Wilmot Township. Former council, after some issues across Canada happened, decided to remove the statues and leave it for the future council to decide, and now we're at the point in time where the future council is here. That's my council. We had public engagement continued, because the biggest feedback that we heard was the community was not pleased with the prior engagement. So we underwent 8 months working with Laura Consulting, who worked along with a township community group that essentially went through how can we move forward either with the statues or without them. What does that look like? And really have engaging conversations in our community. And that led council in July to pass a motion that the Prime Minister's Path statue project will be coming back to the township. And with it, though, before any statues are re-erected, there has to be an educational component. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, is how we're actually proceeding with it. And we're currently openly recruiting for the community committee that is going to lead the education component and really the general project, continuing it forward.
Right. And I don't want to focus too much in the past. I do want to focus on why you're joining us today. But initially, I think during, more information about John A. Macdonald, and that he became this controversial figure suddenly, and his statue was damaged, and some felt it probably shouldn't have the prominent place in the park. A lot of issues with Truth and Reconciliation advocates who said we're not represented here. So what I'm saying is there was a lot of issues to where it got to this, where it's like, maybe we should rethink this. And that's kind of where we're at now, right? Where it's like, well, let's see if we can address all of these issues and still have a good historical display, a path display, if you will, or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not really a new issue. I mean, even when I went to university, I was over in the UK, but the Rhodes Must Fall campaign was happening there, and that was to remove the Cecil Rhodes statues, who most people might not know about him other than the Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford. His endowment still funds that programming. So we see points in history where people know more, are more informed and have new information or new cultural and social perspectives. So we do reflect differently on history. And I think that we've seen that now. And that's happened across our country with different figures and statues. So absolutely, yes, you are right that Sir John A. Macdonald's statue was vandalized a few times, and one of the things that we heard from the community is that he wouldn't be prominent placed on our main street. Instead, he'll go back with the rest of the statues, which is in a more concealed park area behind our township offices.
Well, what's happened, and people would be very familiar with a lot of the sort of the Confederate statues in the States, that's controversial in a like manner. But what people said was, and are saying, and I don't know if you're saying as well, is that we still should maybe have these. We don't necessarily have to tear them down. We just have context for them and to them so that people can interpret that instead of seeing a statue as a thing of honor necessarily.
Yeah, so again, council's decided to move this project forward, and council in our resolution as well that we passed is taking in the different perspectives, and that there are multiple different voices and ways to look at our history, and using this really as an opportunity for learning and having these statues up. And I think one thing, too, that's different from some other statues about these ones in particular, and this actually came out of the original project, was that the statues are supposed to be life-size, not greater than life. So not something that's necessarily making them bigger than life, but really life-size and to be reflective and a point of reflection. I mean, artwork is supposed to make you stop and think. You don't necessarily need to like it, but it's supposed to invoke feeling and thinking, and then adding in the educational component and ensuring that it's actually done, because that was an element that was supposed to happen and never came to fruition. So now council's ensuring that this happens as we go forward to give people an opportunity to learn. And I think it's really important to reflect and understand that when decisions are made, it has different impacts on different people and different groups of people.
Well said. I think that the steering committee is meant to kind of get this done in a proper way. So who are you looking for on the steering committee? Can anybody apply, or are you looking for specific people of specific knowledge-based people or anything like that, or who can who you're looking for?
Absolutely. So it is open applications. And when I say open, it's not just Wilmot Township. One of the things that I don't want to speak for all of council, but I at least acknowledge is that the prime ministers are the prime ministers of Canada. So it's much like the township is choosing to host a federal conversation. So looking for people who are interested in the project and people who have different and relevant perspectives as well as skill sets to bring. forward to this project. So one big requirement, and actually as part of the application process, you are required to read through and understand both council's motion about how the project is to proceed and also about the Laura consulting recommendations and the recommendations from our working group that worked with the Laura consultants, so that they know how the project is supposed to be proceeding. So we're looking, this is no longer a conversation of if it's happening or not. It's now a conversation of now what do we need to include and how do we see the storytelling and the narrative of our history through this opportunity of the Prime Minister's Path. So anyone who has a relevant experience or exposure that they want to bring to that, as well as individuals perhaps with educational backgrounds could be of relevance. People from various different lived experiences are also welcome to apply. There will most certainly be Wilmot residents on it, but like I said, it's not limited solely to Wilmot residents. And we're looking for a diverse range of ideas and opinions. Again, the project is going forward, but we are looking for people to bring depth and richness to the educational components in the execution of this project.
I mean, educationally, to have this history in 3D, if you will, these forms in a walking path setting in a park in a township, I think is just a terrific idea. I agree with you wholeheartedly on the what are we saying in the context and all of it. But I also want to ask if I'm applying and I look good on the form and everything, what's my commitment if I get accepted? How long do you think I'm working here? How many meetings am I going to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the initial commitment when you're applying, like I said, you have to invest a bit of time to understanding and grasping our consultants' recommendations, as well as our working group's recommendations and council's motion, and then, of course, the application part. Now, if you are successful on it, we're not looking for this to be a part-time job by any means, or full-time for that matter. It will consist of a few meetings. In the start, I would imagine that there's going to be a few hours over a few months' time investment of meetings to really get the project moving and rolling. And then I imagine that will kind of trickle out. But one great element is that council has tasked this new committee with coming up with their terms of reference. So in there, they can include, for example, how long of a term they'll serve and what kind of time commitment they're looking for. So there is flexibility in what that'll look like, but initially I would imagine probably a good 2 to 3 hours for 2 to 3 months to start, and then it'll probably peter off or may increase depending on what the committee decides to do.
Right. And would this be something you'd want to keep? Because in 5 years from now, we may want to change this or that. And it would be handy to have a committee to be able to address that. Would you keep a committee in an advisory capacity, or would you reform another one as necessary?
No. So the intent is, you might have seen it as examples in other communities, but like the friends of an organization. So an arm's length organization. This is, and again, not the exact title necessarily. I'm just saying in concept, it would be like the Friends of the Prime Minister's Path. So they would be the advisory body responsible for the education. And there would always be a body in place so that as either new information comes to light or research or a different perspective that we haven't yet considered comes forward, that can be updated. And just like in many museums, we do see updates to even just making the content different and more engaging or adapted to different technologies or learnings that have come out. So it will be an ongoing committee. Now, again, in terms of how long the committee an individual is on it, those terms of references are yet to be created by the committee.
Sure. I think, may I say that just even having the committee and having a discussion, getting a discussion going with different kinds of input is invaluable in itself. The fact that it'll result in a better Prime Minister's Path is a bonus almost. The fact that we're together and we're talking, I think, is great. So congratulations. I understand it's wilmot.ca/PMP. Is the place to start?
that is the place to start. Also, if you just throw it into Google, it should pop up pretty easily, and our brand new website has it front and center, so it's fantastic, as well as you can give a call to our administrative offices if you don't use internet but are still interested in the opportunity to apply.
All right. Mayor Salonen, great stuff. All the best. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Larry. Have a great day.
You too. Natasha Salonen is the mayor of Wilmot, and the steering committee that's going to be formed to reintroduce, if you will, the Prime Minister's path in a more, I was going to say conciliatory, but that's not really it. But I mean, there will be truth and reconciliation as part of it, but just with different perspectives and historical perspectives to it. Again, wilmot.ca/PMP. That's for Prime Minister's path. Wilmot.ca/PMP. More on this in a moment at 570 News Radio.
You don't necessarily need to like it, but it's supposed to invoke feeling and thinking, and then adding in the educational component and ensuring that it's actually done, because that was an element that was supposed to happen and never came to fruition. So now Council's ensuring that this happens as we go forward to give people an opportunity to learn. And I think it's really important to reflect and understand that when decisions are made, it has different impacts on different people and different groups of people.
My guest, the mayor of Wilmot, Natasha Salonen. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell this week, and we're talking about the new plans for the Prime Minister's path. I always like the Prime Minister's path idea. I know people have many opinions on it, and the fact that it has to change. I guess some people would rather it not, I guess. And it really did start with the vandalization of John A. Macdonald statue, as we found more about John A. Macdonald, as you know, formerly the guy who was on the 10. I think he's still in on some 10s, isn't he? Or is it Viola Desmond only? Well, nevertheless, sorry, sidebar. But the first Prime Minister of Canada is who I'm talking about, John A. Macdonald. We have a John A. Macdonald Day that I've noticed every January now is not really mentioned anymore. As new things come to light about John A. Macdonald. And I think it's my personal, is where I've arrived finally after all this idea of let's change the name of Ryerson and let's change the name of this school and let's tear down this statue and what have you. You know, my joke was always the Donald Trump statue will be dedicated already face down on the sidewalk. But do we tear down these statues as we find out more about historical figures? Is tearing them down the right thing to do? Or I think usually name changes are the right thing to do if we find out something about an individual, that because naming a school or an institution or a place or something after a person is an honor, right? And therefore, if we find out that the person wasn't particularly honorable, we should remove the honor. A statue, and the mayor mentioned it there on the Prime Minister's path statues. I think this was always a good idea, that the statues be not larger than life, which is what is part of the honor of erecting a statue for person A, B, or C. Then these were meant to be kind of life size, I don't know this is a good example because Jack Layton is a person we admire, but the Jack Layton statue is on a bench and it's life size, and that was the whole idea of making it more human, and you could go sit beside the bench and pose with this Jack Layton figure and pictures and more of that to make it more real and everything. Now, that's, for Jack Layton, that's still an honor. For people, other people, where we find out things about them what we don't necessarily want to honor, it doesn't erase them from history. It doesn't mean that John A. Macdonald was still not the first Prime Minister of Canada, and that there's a history around that and his prime ministership and all of those kinds of things that shouldn't be known, not necessarily honored, but shouldn't be known and shouldn't be part of a historical walk and a path and a display, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where I've kind of settled on it. So I am very glad to see the Prime Minister's path kind of reformed in a way, reinvented through a steering committee of people who have an opinion and knowledge of the situation. Here's Marlene. Marlene, go ahead.
Hi, I'm calling about the Prime Minister's path. I've been meaning to call in for a long time. So now I'm just going to voice my opinion that I don't think it's a very good idea because of the cost. If they want to use it for a teaching thing, they could just simply put up pictures. It wouldn't cost thousands of dollars to make a full person-sized statue, and that price will go up every time because everything is going up, and maintenance, etc. They can just put a series of pictures somewhere. They could even make them life-size if they wanted to, but it would be a lot less money, and it would still be a teaching thing. This is just lining the pockets of somebody.
Would it have the same impact, do you think?
Pardon?
Would it have the same impact, though? Pictures versus a statue?
Sure. Kids they don't really care. They're going to be taught it in school anyway, hopefully, with history. You could even have a life-size picture. That would have impact. I think it's just a lot of money that people should not have to pay, especially right now. And it's just going to keep going up to make these crazy
Interesting.
things. Anyway,
Thank you, Marlene.
that's my opinion. Okay,
thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. I don't know how much of a tourist element there is to that. I suspect some where there's not the cost of you're not entering a museum where you're paying to see the Prime Minister's path, but you're in Wilmot. So let's go down to the ice cream shop and I'll stop at the drugstore while I'm here because I need some stuff, or what, you know what I mean? Just that whole thing of foot traffic and getting people around the community. And I mean, I understand Marlene's point. I personally think, though, that the 3D statues based in, life size in a path with plaques and displays and everything is a little more impactful than just a series of pictures. But there is the cost element. Absolutely. Absolutely. Big demonstration yesterday at Conestoga and the Doon campus. That was OPSU. In case you didn't know, we're going to have a representative chair of the bargaining committee, I think is the official title. I'll get that correct for you. Right after 12 o'clock, we'll have that. And then we'll get into our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. All next on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoric.
And some would say Mike's away today. As you just heard, Mike is in Flint. You'll hear him tonight on the Rangers game on 570 News Radio. And he'll be away all week with the team who I think Friday's Sioux. Yeah, Friday Sioux and Saturday Saginaw. And go Rangers go. And then he'll be back on Tuesday. And this is our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, which we are going to delay for a few minutes because we have the opportunity, and we want to take it, to speak to OPSU. As you know, yesterday was the big rally of striking workers for OPSU at Conestoga's Doon campus, and basically was just a hub of activity, shut down the campus for out of caution, I guess, just to keep things flowing safe and keep all the demonstrators safe as well and everything. But it really brought some attention to some of the issues. Joining us is the chair of the full-time support bargaining team for OPSU, Seth Poe, and it's Christine Kelsey who joins us now. Hello, Christine. How are you?
Hi, Larry. I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Would you look at the rally yesterday as a success, or how would you define success in that it brought attention to OPSU and the issues? Would you say that?
Yeah, I would consider that a success. I think right now, because we're at a bargaining impasse, we are ramping up pressures at various colleges across the system to try and draw attention and try and get the college presidents to agree to come back to the bargaining table and bargain with us.
Because now that is not happening, and people should understand, if they don't, that the strike that wasn't the first thing, was the rally yesterday. You've been on strike for about, 4 weeks now?
Yeah, we went on strike on September 11th. So we've been on strike since September 11th. We did go back to the table briefly for mediation, and our mediation talks fell apart. And so we are currently not talking right now.
And this is representation of what, 24 public colleges in Ontario?
Yeah, so it's all the full-time support staff that work at all 24 colleges. It's about 10,000 workers across the system.
And what are some of the main issues that you're looking at?
So the main issues that are important to our workers right now are around job security, and we're looking for measures that will help protect workers from losing their jobs across the system right now. The college system has lost over 10,000 jobs over the last year, and it's looking like many, many more layoffs are coming, or contracting out of services is coming. And so we are trying to protect jobs by finding ways of having language that can stop some of the layoffs or some of the bleed of our jobs out of the system.
Has this got anything to do with college funding and the Ontario government as well?
Yeah, it sure does. The college system in Ontario is the lowest funded per student in all of Canada, and college funding is definitely playing an impact. So many colleges lose money on domestic students, and so definitely we're calling on the Ford government to be giving us proper funding so that we can stop losing programs, because we've lost over 650 programs over the last year as well, and that's impacting communities all across the province.
I'm glad you brought that up, because colleges, I guess people should realize what a community asset they are when you have a public college in your city and town. Yeah,
so colleges are they train workers, for one thing, in communities all across the province. So there's more than 24 locations for our campuses across the province, and many rural and northern communities have college campuses, and they train workers specifically for what the communities that the colleges sit in need. And also, they're really good employers in those communities, so they bring money into the local economy. They're good jobs in local economies. Very important to people to be able to go back to school, for instance. Many students can't afford to move away from home to go to college, so having community colleges is incredibly important.
Now, the campus, Doon campus at Conestoga, was closed yesterday. I think you had Fanshawe, and I'm blanking on the other one that was there yesterday.
So there were a few colleges that went to that campus there were campuses within a certain distance of that campus who joined them. They came by bus to help with the picket lines, support the picket lines.
Sure, and the campus was closed basically to vehicular traffic and just for a lot of it for safety reasons, but an effective rally, I thought. I believe Conestoga Doon campus is open today. Do you plan other rallies of a similar nature?
So there's a similar rally happening today at Loyalist College, and we are planning to continue to ramp up action. It's not going to be business as usual at Ontario's colleges until we can get a deal that support staff workers can count on to save jobs.
And I'm sorry, you did mention this, but tell me again, you were back at the table for a while. You're not now. Is there a sign that you might get back?
So right now, the college presidents are refusing to come to the table. We are ready, willing, and able to be at the table at a moment's notice. It's important to us that we get back to work. We want to be serving our students. Every support staff person who works at a college is attached to student success in some kind of way. You know, we recruit students, we register students, we help them with financial aid, we keep the lights on in the college. We help students with disabilities. Pretty much anything that's not teaching or management is done by support staff. And we want to get back to work and back to our students so that we can keep doing the work that we're doing. So, yeah, we're ready to go back as soon as the employer is ready to come back with us.
Do you plan another rally for Conestoga, or we'll see how it goes?
Well, we're not really disclosing where our rallies are going to be. So, but there'll be more rallies across the province, so people will notice. We are trying to disrupt. It shouldn't be business as usual while we're on strike.
I know what you mean. Thanks for your time today, Christine. All the best. I hope you get back to it.
Yeah, so do we, and thank you for the time today.
You bet. Christine Kelsey is chair of the full-time support bargaining team for OPSU CEFPO. And in case you didn't know, because I wasn't quite sure myself, CEFPO is basically the French translation of OPSU, the acronym, if you will. So that's what I'm saying there. So OPSU generally, though, the Ontario Public Service Employees Union. And it was quite the rally yesterday. And I understand why they wouldn't disclose if they're coming back to Conestoga, because it was disruptive. But I mean, in general sense, no matter what side you fall on, I usually fall on employees and union side myself. Post office notwithstanding, but nevertheless, in a case like this, for these public colleges, for the support staff, man, would love to see them, never mind get back to the table, get back to work. I'm sure they want to get back to work. It's just under the correct conditions and guarantees that they are looking for. So I hope it happens soon. In the meantime, more rallies planned, and I guess if they come back to Conestoga and the Doon campus, we'll know maybe a day ahead of time or hours ahead of time, but not before that. It's our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour now. We can get back to whatever you want to talk about, and why don't we take a call before the break? Here's Grant, who's been holding. Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, so this mayor that you were speaking to today at the township, was she also involved in the landline assembly?
I don't know what you're referring to by that reference. Land assembly of what?
Well, when they signed that agreement with the landline to take over this land.
For what now? Take over the land for?
Oh, it's been going on for 6 months.
Okay.
It was hush, hush, hush. It was all over your news.
Oh, okay. As a fill-in guy, I guess I'm a little behind on that particular story, and I apologize.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then about this McDonald statue, doesn't she put it in her living room? And she's asking for donate funds?
No. No, not at all. No.
So how's this?
They're not asking for that. It's all done. It's in a public park. The statues are built. It was already up. It just people weren't responding to the way it was displayed. They weren't responding well. They didn't feel that it addressed every aspect of Canadian history and society. Some people were upset by that, so they basically closed it, took it down in most senses, and now are looking for a committee to sort of decide how it should go back up.
And this guy, he didn't like Indian people.
Well,
right?
Who didn't like so-called?
Well,
you mean
this McDonald
Aboriginals guy, or Native Canadians? Like,
yeah,
who didn't like them?
You didn't like them. That's why it was being damaged, because he didn't like the Indian people. So
John A. Macdonald didn't. I mean, John A. Macdonald, wrote the Indian Act. He was very unfair to the Native population.
So then why don't they put the statue in the mayor's, put it in the mayor's,
Well,
backyard.
Okay, Grant, I don't know where you're going with this, so I'm just going to end this at this point. I think actually what they're going to do with Johnny McDonald is put him in a less prominent portion of the display, if you will, eventually. But that's not even that. That's why they have a committee, is to how to properly represent a person who is still the first Prime Minister of Canada and is part of that history. How does that represent in a display? Okay, regardless of his personal record, he's still part of history, and that should be told in a way that is truthful, I guess, is the best word I can look for now. But anyway, we'll take a short break. Back with more of the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour in a moment here on 570 News Radio. What do you want to talk about? It's up to you on our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. You heard the numbers. Hope you can call them and share your thoughts and opinions on whatever you want to talk about. Here's Dave. Dave, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Good afternoon, Larry. A couple quick points, but first I would like to welcome you back on 570.
Thank you.
First point I'd like to make is this is my understanding of the rule, which I think you misunderstood. It's the foul pole rule. And my understanding is if it hits the foul pole, it doesn't matter what happens after that. It can go bounce fair, it can bounce foul, it can bounce anywhere. It's a home run. So
okay. I didn't understand that. I thought it was whichever way it ricocheted. Okay.
Oh, that's the first thing.
Okay, that would. By the way, let me interrupt. We're talking about Aaron Judge's home run last night, which hit the foul pole, ricocheted fair, and my thought was if it ricocheted foul, it was foul. I am corrected. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome. Second thing is, I'm looking forward next year to giving up my car, and unfortunately I don't know if I'll ever see the LRT train, but. Anyway, I'm looking forward to giving it up. And there's some the big store chains this past year have opened up to free delivery. They have different plans for their food delivery service, which I'm looking forward to, except the issue of perishables. But I'm looking forward to giving up my car and going on the transit system and having my delivery of food. So that's what I'd like to say and throw out there. And again, welcome back to 570. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure to be here. I was talking about earlier when we were talking about what brought that up, I guess. Well, when we were talking about the LRT extension in Cambridge with Patrick Simmons, I just mentioned that I gave up my car, mostly because my eyesight. I probably could still drive and pass a driver's test, but I was like, it's iffy, and who needs it? And I'm semi-retired, and why pay all that money? The best thing I ever did. It's not for everyone. Not everyone can do it, but for me, it was just a great thing, and I'm so glad to be free of it, the expense and concern, and just everything. I'm just happy that it's gone, and I think Dave was referring to that. So good luck with that when it comes up for you, Dave. Here's Adam. Adam, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Hello there.
Hey.
I was just curious why you guys are in support, well, you specifically are in support of the support staff at colleges striking, but not the postal workers.
I didn't say I wasn't in support of the postal workers. Me personally, I support unions and I want everybody to have a good job. I just don't see a future for the post office in its current model.
Well, in its current model, potentially, but you do understand the nuances of their current offer, right? Like nobody speaks about the fact that they're looking to downsize dramatically and get rid of a lot of their staff that have been there for 20 plus years. And
yeah, but what else can you do?
Sorry. Can I finish, please?
Yeah, sure.
So if a business is not operating in the black, do you go after the workers who are doing the work? No, you go after management because management is not doing their job. In this case, nobody why is the government not looking at restructuring management there? They're the ones that are blowing it. They're the ones that are making Canada Post lose so much money. It's not the workers. The workers are being stripped of all of their benefits. Their wages have reduced. The starting wage now for Canada Post employees is less than it was 15 years ago. Do you understand that? Nobody talks about this sort of thing. Everybody's all anti-postal workers when it's management that's dropping the ball.
I would agree with you 95% of the
time. You got a CEO
time.
there making hundreds of thousands of dollars. It doesn't make any sense that he's going to still be there during this restructuring. They need to completely overhaul management, and that's the only way Canada Post is going to get back into the black, not with these guys taking care of. Thank you, and bye for now.
All right, Adam. First of all, a lot of stuff I agree with, Adam. A lot of the times when a company isn't doing well, a corporation of any kind, the first thing they do is they strip labor down, and it's rarely the correct thing to do. And I agree, a lot of times fat cat management, board members, et cetera, in a typical corporation are making too much money. There's too much wage disparity. I agree with all of that. But after you do all that and trim management and do all that, and let's face it, CEOs and VPs are going to be making 6 and 7 figures. That's what they make. You're not going to get anybody for minimum wage, for $60,000 a year to be the CEO of a post office or anything. So that there's going to be that. When it's extreme wage disparity, I hate that. I think they should get rid of that. And yes, they should always look at trimming management because there's a lot of fat cat dollars there that just go to waste. But it's not management. It's the changing times, man. You just don't need all these people, all these trucks and all these bodies delivering mail every day. It's just not necessary. Small business needs it. Rural needs it. There's a system there to properly serve, by the way, a vast geographical country that has remote areas and place your address is Hell's Half Acre, H1953. But at some point in Canada Post, sorry, the business is an antiquated business model, and it's going to need a lot less people. And I'm sorry about that. Hey, Jason, if you wouldn't mind holding on, we'll get back to you right after our news break here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Got about half an hour to go on our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. So what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about speed cameras? Do you want to talk about the Blue Jays? Do you want to talk... Oh, Blue Jays, which reminds me, I was going to mention earlier and I forgot. Don't let me forget now. Here we go. If you're in the Gaslight District tonight in Cambridge, you know that big screen? You know what's playing on the big screen tonight? The Blue Jays game. That's right. Absolutely free in the square on the big screen in the Gaslight District of Cambridge. The Blue Jays game tonight, 8 o'clock, game 4 out of the Bronx. I'm feeling good for whatever that's worth. Nothing, by the way, but I'm feeling good about game 4. I wasn't about game 3, and look what happened. But go Jays go. And again, that game's free tonight in the Gaslight. So that'd be cool. Here's Mark on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Larry. I was listening to you earlier this morning, and I liked your idea about the Swiffer slipper.
Thank you. Can I for people who weren't listening, my idea is...
That would actually work for me, Larry. Walk around my kitchen, my hallway, and I like the idea, Larry.
Because I kind of do it now with my socks. I know that sounds disgusting, but as a single guy, if I see a little mark on the floor, I just put my sock over it and problem solved.
Yeah, maybe market it, Larry. It's a good idea.
If I had actually a Swiffer slipper that I could just throw on and do my floors, I think it would work. But anyway, Mark, thank you for your support.
Okay, Larry, thanks.
Was that it? Okay, thanks, man. I got a lot of good ideas that I keep in a file called I Can't Think of Everything. But one of them was the Swiffer slipper. So it's a booty that looks like it's easy to slip on because it looks like the booty that service people put on when they come into your house, over their boots. Some people do that so they don't track your floors. And it'd be one like that and a package of those for whatever, and you put one on and it's got a Swiffer at the bottom. So then you can just, for lazy men who have try to keep a neat floor, just move your foot around the kitchen. Easy to reach into corners and under stuff. You just do your foot. You're doing a little dancing exercise there, and you're Swiffering your floor, and there's no handles, there's no muss, there's no fuss. There's just your foot. Huh? Come on, it's not bad. It's not bad. The other idea that I'm every year I said I'm going to write the chocolate companies is, I don't know if I should share this because it is genius. What the heck? I can't think of everything. This is a true idea. So in Halloween, you get these little individual, whatever you want. It's a little single serving wrapped Kit Kat, or an O. Henry, or caramel, or whatever it is, whatever brands you buy. And isn't it expensive? Isn't it crazy? The Halloween candy, it's ridiculous. It's like I used to buy myself a box of Halloween candy and just dip in myself, for these 30 little chocolate bars and just have it for a few weeks hanging around the house. And now I look at it and I go, it's $23. Like, that's ridiculous. I know, right? So I just go to Home Hardware and I wait till they have a sale on chocolate bars and I buy them there. But anyway, Home Hardware, your home of chocolate bars. So the individual servings. So instead of wrapping for Christmas time, instead of wrapping them up and for Halloween, put them in a box, and it's a box of chocolates. And the box of chocolates is not pot of gold or anything else, though they are delicious. You're giving somebody a box of Kit Kats or a box of O. Henrys or a box of, for some reason I can't think of any other chocolate bars, coffee crisps, whatever you want. And those are the individual chocolates. It would be a much better, gift is when you come to somebody's house than regular chocolates where you don't know what you're getting. Wouldn't that, come on, I think that's a great idea. And they already make them. They already have them. All they'd have to do is come up with some packaging. Yeah, this is the joys of being semi-retired, is you get to think of these wonderful $1 million ideas that really aren't worth $1 million, just in your mind, Andre, go ahead, get me out of this. Andre. Hey, Andre.
Good morning, good afternoon, Larry.
Hey.
A little tired here. My goodness gracious.
You what?
Well, it's funny because in Canada, we only have one baseball team left, right? So you like them or you don't. You have to follow it, right? They're doing so good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And the first two games, it blew my mind because they remind me back in the days where team effort, right? It was a lot of team effort. It was too flawless. But the Yankees, they're not done. So it's very interesting. The reason I'm calling, Larry, is go Rangers. And,
yes.
Mike's on the road for it. So always listening, Mike. And hopefully you can get a little tap on the shoulder from my Tanner Lamb, one of my favorite players. And I'm happy that you're filling in again. Hopefully one day, Larry, you can talk about the Halloween move on the last Saturday of the month. This year it's okay. It's a Friday, right?
Right. Yeah, that's also my thing of moving Halloween, yeah.
Right? Because, Mike got the force. He's got the force with him, so he moves things around. He changes things, but you should have a force number 2, Larry, and change things around, like Halloween and your idea with the slip-on slipper. I think that would be great. Maybe you could talk to, what's his name tomorrow, Chuck?
Could, yes.
The retirement dude?
Yeah. Could do that. That's not bad. Right? Yeah.
And that's what I had to say today. And go Rangers today, and go Rangers Friday, and go Rangers all the time.
Thank you, Andre.
You take care.
Thank you, man. Take care. If I don't talk to you, have a happy Thanksgiving, great weekend. My other idea was to move Thanksgiving to Thursday. Keep it in October the way it should be rather than in November the way the Americans do. It's silly. But we move ours to Thursday, second Thursday of October instead of the Monday. And then we eventually just, it wouldn't take long. We could get it into a 4-day weekend instead of a 3-day weekend. That's my motivation for moving it to a Thursday. That's the only reason. That's the only good idea they had in America is put it on a Thursday instead of a Monday. Their timing otherwise sucks. Interesting about baseball and the effort of the team. I also have a thought on that. I don't know your thoughts on that. Baseball is a very interesting team sport because unlike football, hockey, basketball, soccer, it really more depends on one individual's effort at a time. The pitcher throws the ball, the hitter's got to try and hit it. Nobody else is involved. No one. Until the hitter hits it. Then suddenly a guy at first base has to make a move. Or a guy at third base has to get it and throw it to the guy at first base whose job is to catch it. It all depends. There's no team hustling all at once, 9 players moving around the field. There's no 9 players on offense. It's one batter. Maybe there's a couple other base runners and they have to know when to run. But it's individual efforts, even though they are called a team. It's a great sport of individual effort. As all are. I mean, I get your quarterback has to throw it properly and the guys to catch it. But there's no movement all at once, unlike baseball is really an individual thing, which is why I kind of like it. And you're also part of a team. So that's cool. But he's right. His point is about all the individual efforts of all the different Blue Jays as a team is absolutely true. Here's Terry. Terry, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Hey, hi, Larry. Quickly, a couple things here about the post office. I think it was a big mistake when Trudeau came in and he canceled that plan when they were going to have the super mailboxes and eliminate the home delivery, because he kept the home delivery going. I think that's. I think in our lifetime there'll still be a need for the postal service.
Oh yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting up there long in the tooth. So, if you're 20 years old today, I think eventually, I don't know how far the electronic technology is going to go, but I still rely on mail service for sure. About the caller that said about the foul ball going one way or the other. I think people got confused with football, because if the football hits the upright on a field goal attempt and it goes to the other side away from the uprights, it doesn't count. But if it goes in, it does count. So in baseball, once you hit that foul pole, it is a home run, regardless of where the ball.
You know what? That's exactly what I was doing, Terry. You're absolutely right. I was confusing it with the football rule. I was.
Yeah, that's what I thought when the caller earlier called in and mentioned that. About this series, I hate the Yankees, and I'm not a Jay fan, I will say. But the thing, I know people shrugged that late surge there in Game 2 by the Yankees when they scored 7 runs late. But sometimes when the momentum shifts, it's hard to turn off that tap. I know yesterday the Jays got off to that 6-1 lead, but the momentum then switched again. So. I'll just remind everybody, in 2015, the Texas Rangers won the first 2 games of their little 5-game series, and the Jays came back to win the next 3. So don't count your eggs before they're hatched. That's all I can say. So we'll see what happens on that one.
Absolutely. Good advice, Terry.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
And the other series, I thought the Tigers were going to win, but I don't think so. I think Seattle's going to pull that off, and it doesn't matter. The Dodgers are going to win it all anyway. They know talking about turning on taps. They just know how to turn it on and turn it off. The regular season to them doesn't mean anything. They'll just pound you in the playoffs. So I'd be very shocked, Larry, if the Dodgers didn't win it all this year. Anyway, have a good day, sir. We'll catch you again.
You bet. Yeah, Dodgers are a force for sure. I mean, potentially. The teams are there to have a 1993 rematch of the Jays and Phillies in the playoffs, or in the World Series, but it's just not going to happen National League wise. We could get there. I don't doubt the Phillies will. More of your thoughts and calls. It's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour when we return on 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Still got a few minutes left for your calls at 519-570-2545, 1-800-570-5715, or star 570 on your cell. Here's Tom. Tom, go ahead, sir.
Hi, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. About the Prime Minister, get rid of all those statues. These are the guys that ruined the country. All of them.
Okay.
Fuck them, like they did with the rest. We got nothing but idiots running the country. That's all my thing.
All right.
Well,
Tom, thank you. Thank you for the call. We're talking about the Prime Minister's path earlier with the mayor of Wilmot. If you missed that story, they're forming a steering committee looking for members right now, by the way, if you want to apply at wilmot.ca/PMP on how to resurrect this historical path of prime ministers that they had, and then how to better present history, I guess, is what they're looking for. So Tom's idea, just get rid of them all. Well, nothing but idiots running the country. That's hard to argue sometimes. That is hard to argue. Do we have a minute or two? So here's a game I want to play. I want you to, for a second, we're going to play Name That Tune, and then I'll tell you why I'm playing it. Just a little story I thought I'd share today. Now that we've got a couple of minutes alone here, okay, here's the tune. Can you name that tune? Here it is. Can you do it? Like when I heard it first a few weeks ago, I hadn't heard it for a while, and I heard it out of context. It actually took me about half an hour. I wasn't going to look it up or do anything, or I was like, what is that? What is that? So if you said it's The Joker by the Steve Miller Band, congratulations. You win today's grand prize. And today's grand prize is My Best Regards. Congratulations. So I live in a building, and I spend a lot of time at my desk, both working and, recreational, having some fun online and stuff. And I always have the screen open, the window open here. And a few weeks ago, down a bunch of floors, and the building is great for noise. I don't hear neighbors. All the neighbors pretty quiet. They have been for years. It's not a noise issue. It's not I'm hearing somebody's music. But way down, and Devin, can you play it a little softer this time? Way down, as I'm working, way down a few floors from me, I hear this one day. I hear this. I don't much hear that part, but I hear this part. Imagine this is that guitar is cutting through the air. And that's all I can hear is this guitar. And then I don't hear anything else. Even if I'm listening closely now for the rest of the song, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I spend a little bit, and like now it's obvious, right? When you say it, it's obvious. But when you just hear it out of context, you're going, what is that? And then I go, all right, it's The Joker. And I'm thinking, I don't want it. And I'm singing it, and I'm trying to, and I come up with, oh, it's The Joker. Next day, like clockwork, around the same time I'm in my office, down about 6-8 floors, I don't know where it's coming from, I hear this again. So now it's not like clockwork, but it's somewhere between 5:30 and 7 o'clock every day for the last 2 weeks. I will suddenly hear somewhere in my building, some guy obviously has got his window open. He's playing The Joker at a volume enough where I can hear. It's very faint, but for some reason that guitar just cuts through. I can't hear, like I said, I can't hear anything else. He may be playing the entire album. I don't hear it. I hear the guitar part. And it's like a comfort thing to me now, because I'm not expecting it. I'm involved in my work or whatever I'm doing, and suddenly I'll hear, and I'm like, oh, there he is. Oh, you're a little late today. Would you get held up at work? Like, and it just started. I don't know whether somebody just moved in or they just downloaded the song or somebody just gave them a CD or maybe they're still playing vinyl. I don't know. But every day, my day's not complete until I hear this. Now, once I heard it, I went to YouTube and I found the song and I played the whole song. And it was fun. I heard the whole song. Haven't heard that for a while. And listened to it. Maybe a couple other Steve Miller tracks. I actually saw Steve Miller years ago live, not that long ago. He would have been older already. Saw him with, believe it or not, Joe Cocker on the same bill. And I thought, when I saw that show, I went, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to see two old guys who don't have it anymore, and it's going to be very sad. And boy, was I wrong. Joe Cocker, the chops, Steve Miller still had the chops. It was great. And you could sing along with every word. Man, I love that. So anyway, I did my reminiscing of Steve Miller, and I was done. This guy, whoever this person is, every day, somewhere between 5:30 and 7 o'clock, they end their day, maybe at the beginning of their day. I don't know. See, I don't know. And I'm not going to find out. I thought about maybe guessing where it's at or running outside and seeing if I could hear what floor it's coming from, or then maybe go to the door and listen through the door to see if I could hear that they're like, what, and if I found out, what would I do? I have nothing to complain about. It's not too loud for me and it only lasts a few seconds. All I hear is the guitar part. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to write a letter. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just curious. I'm just very curious now. Who wants to hear Steve Miller, the Joker, every day between 5:30 and 7 o'clock? What's your deal? What's your deal? Can I introduce you to maybe Boss Skaggs or some, the Eagles? Would you like to play somebody else? Like, I don't know. Just that song. Oh, man. It is fun times. Always something interesting. I always say that the number of people who live in my building is greater than the population of the town I grew up in. So it's the community, and somebody in my community loves the Joker by Steve Miller. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that story while I had a few minutes. As you know, Mike Farwell's on the road with the Rangers. It's Go Rangers Go tonight. You'll hear Mike on the play-by-play. They're in Flint tonight, that game on 570 News Radio. The Blue Jays game, well, you're going to have to catch that on Sportsnet or on Sportsnet free at the Gaslight District on big screen in Cambridge or wherever you are. Go Jays Go as well. And I'll be back tomorrow for Mike Farwell. It's Larry Fedoruk. We'll talk soon.